Alright, we're gonna go ahead and get started here in just a minute. I've been trying to make sure that everything works in the background because there's a few other sort of plugins or things that I had to bring in to make today's stream work. So, starting to get things together. We'll see how it goes. So the plan for today is kind of what I wanted to do yesterday, but yesterday I was like really exhausted and tired. Today hopefully we can actually go over everything just as its own stream and just literally go through secrets, mechanics, discussions, hidden things that we found over the years, just a lot of the different research and all that good stuff that we've learned just playing Archeage for a long period of time, and we sort of document it in like Google Docs and such. But this stream will actually be like a point of reference, right? Like a, hey, today this is the stuff that we're aware of, right? This is the stuff that we are, like, you know, that we've discovered or learned at this point in time. And of course, mechanics have changed over the years, and things probably have to be retested and such. So, you know, all that is you know, I'll try to keep everybody sort of well aware of where we're missing data, or where something is kind of old, or where something was tested a long time ago. But for the most part, I was kind of looking through all the different things that I'm going to be talking about, and I think everything holds up. There's a couple of things here or there that are a little bit out of date, and like really old Reddit posts that we've already since kind of, you know, had new mechanics replace those, and I'm not going to go back and edit the old Reddit posts, but we'll talk about those, and I'll mention that, hey, this is actually not right anymore, or whatever. And of course the references and everything will be listed too. This whole stream, of course, will be uploaded up to YouTube afterwards, so, you know, again, as a sort of documented frame of reference, this is the stuff we know as of right now, and of course everything will be up on YouTube. I'm actually going to take a little bit of extra time on this upload, so for the YouTube video watchers, you guys probably already see that the video has timestamps and like actual marks about, you know, each sort of segment or thing that we're talking about. I'm going to try to get that as close to correct as possible if we're talking about a specific topic, at least for an extended period of time. And then, of course, references and things can be up there as well. For those that are interested in, like, kind of reporting other cool information or testing stuff with us or whatever, the Archeage Research and Development Discord is public. You guys can go to it. There's just a link below in the Twitch. There's a link below in the YouTube, you know, video description. And you can just hang out in there. There's a lot of cool people, and, you know, generally it's a good place to ask questions and learn a little bit more about the game that we play, right? So I want to get started here in a little bit because, you know, just as usual, whenever a stream kind of starts up, it takes a little bit for folks to hop in. Like on Saturday stream, we just do fishing until we get a little bit more people. And so today I might just do a little bit of arenas until, you know, maybe we get a few more folks. We can have some good discussions going as we go over different topics. So like the intro here, I'll just be queuing up to arenas and still answering questions with anybody who does have any questions about Archeage related stuff, right? And then we'll see how it goes. We'll start the stream off late. Well, we'll start the R&D portion, or research and development portion, off later on, maybe like in 15 minutes or so, 15-30 minutes, depending on if we can get some folks around. And then we actually have an audience, right? This isn't just a stream that's going to be highlighted up on YouTube, which, to be fair, I end up doing with all the very important streams anyways. I'll highlight segments of important stuff that we talk about. This one's just going to be a little different because it's the full stream divided up into segments of portions of things that we're discussing, right? So we'll see if we can get some arenas here, sparring or not. I'm still messing around with this Immortal class, which I've been, or Immortalist class, which I've been enjoying actually quite a bit. It plays extremely differently since it's a melee without Battle Rage, but it's quite a unique and interesting way to play, utilizing a lot of different combos that most people don't even think about, and very much abusing Stagger as much as possible, especially considering how powerful Stagger actually is. And of course, that'll be one of the topics we talk about, because again, Stagger is actually one of the most powerful crowd controls in the game, for so many different reasons. It just doesn't last that long, and there's no diminishing returns on it. There's like all these different things that it can do. It can disable Defiance, and in some cases, in fact most cases, it doesn't even show up in the combat log. So we'll talk about that, of course, as part of the research stuff that we go over a little bit later on. Wow, what's going on in the background over there? Are you just cleaning things? Hi, you doing good? Okay. I was just hearing tossing of like things in the background. That's fine. Doesn't matter. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Anyways, so yeah, we're just hanging out. We'll do a little bit of arenas while we get the stream going here. Hopefully, I don't know. Actually, I think people are probably in like. Is there some events going on right now? No. You don't think so? I guess not. Alright, well, we'll see if we can get anything popping. Until we get into like secrets and discussions and all that, if chat has any questions about different Archeage related things, we can still go over those as usual. Usually the streams we just kind of answer questions, help people learn stuff. Archeage is a pretty complicated game, especially at the end of the stream. You'll start to, you know, as the stream progresses, I should say, you'll start to realize why that's the case. So answering, you know, asking questions is a pretty good way to learn a little bit more. Even if it's something you think is simple, like proficiency, there tends to be a ridiculous explanation for almost everything, and you know, Excel sheets and whatnot that also kind of are necessary to help explain things, or charts that help explain things. And I even have, and I want to make sure this all works, because I was kind of setting this up before the stream, but I want to make sure that the browser works the way that it should. So browser, yeah, everything is fine here. That's good. This link directory is in the Archeage Research and Development Discord as well. And then I should have paint up. Yay! Alright, so everything looks pretty good. Cool. We have paint. We can use this to make graphs and things, which is like something that I always miss on the regular streams because I just don't have it already set up, but I think we're good now. I can actually use this. We can make quick references or quick plots of stuff. So I'm pretty happy about that. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to get free-for-all, though. Let's, we'll try to queue up for all these different things, see if anything pops instantly. It's getting close to the end of the month. And usually people really rush the arenas to try to get, like, top 20 or something. See, I'm 23rd. I don't really care as much. If I was really hunting Curios badges right now, I'd just do free-for-all arena non-stop, but I don't. So as much as I want a Turtlecraft, it's going to take a very, very long time for me to get it, and it's not something that I'm super looking forward to doing, just because it's like a crazy, crazy grind to get 10,000 Curios badges. And I really do want the Turtlecraft just to mess around with and play with as much as I possibly can. Of course, because it's me we're talking about. But yeah, it's not a priority right now. Yeah, none of these arenas are popping today. Or at least right now they're not. What's going on? Are you just cleaning things? I don't get it. It's just an overly sensitive microphone, so things tend to be heard. Don't give me faces. Alright, whatever. Oh my god. Sinister Bear's in the background making faces at me, and literally I don't know what's going on, so whatever. It's fine. I won't think about it. Yeah, so anyways, we're just kind of chilling for a little bit until, you know, again, first little bit of the stream tends to be kind of quiet, just because I don't have a schedule. So we start to get people over time, like, you know, 30 minutes in or so. So we're just chilling. I want to do a little bit of arenas while we're waiting and just hanging out. It doesn't look like it's happening, though. I'm wondering if I could do something else instead. Do people actually do public groups for Misc Banquet? I feel like everybody wants level 15, right? So it's not hard to do, but I don't know. People tend to go in with friends, right? And I've been doing a little bit of Ipnia Sanctuary lately with a couple different groups, or just a bunch of different people. That's been actually really, really fun. Like I've really enjoyed the way that Ipnia Sanctuary works, especially with Archeage gameplay mechanics. It's been just awesome. I really like this sort of PvE challenge that gives. Obviously, it's a little different than regular content and stuff in the game, right? PvE dungeons aren't really a focus. So this is like a nice fresh of breath air for different kind of gameplay content. Especially, like, I don't really need Ipnia Sanctuary for anything. It's kind of like a nice to have. Like, it would be nice to have a tier 3 Disciple Shield, but the amount of investment for that is pretty high, and I don't really care as much. So I mostly do it just for the hell of it, right? Just because it's actually entertaining and because it's actually a challenge, especially as a melee. For so many reasons, it's I don't know. I guess for the second boss, melee's alright, but for the first one, it's kind of like just a dance fest. You're just running around. Man, no luck with arenas, huh? I guess I'm not really that surprised. I do want free-for-all arena. Free-for-all arena would be a really, really good test of me actually understanding my class really, really well. And one of the things I don't like about Shadowplay is the high cooldowns, right? Even stealth has a very high cooldown, and so and it only starts after stealth ends. So it, you know, those are things I have to start playing around and understanding, because if things in Shadowplay are on cooldown, I have to come up with backup plans for like movement and positioning and everything. The lowest cooldown generally in Shadowplay is Overwhelm for me, which at least will allow me to move towards a target. But the big thing with Overwhelm is abusing Bloodthirst stacks, and I don't get that I don't always have stealth, right? I don't always have Bloodthirst stacks. But the Stagger is so good from Overwhelm. It's just like, it's a more powerful version of Charge. So it's a really, really fun gameplay mechanic, but I have to learn how to practice with all these, and Free-for-all Arena has been a really traditionally good way for me to really force my practice with hotkeys and a class and timings and, you know, understanding buffs and debuffs and everything. But yeah, getting a free-for-all arena is a little bit tough. I could just ask Nation Chat, I guess, and see if people want to queue up, but I'm not super crazy about it right now. I do want to do sparring arena. It's the same ideas, because I want to keep practicing with the class. It's been so much fun. By the way, you can't actually steal Blobby's shield, turns out. So that's a thing. That's a thing we tested. Because we could steal Mana Barrier and Insulating Lens, which are really good things to steal. But Blobby's shield is not stealable. That'd be crazy, though. Literally just rip off a 20k shield. I mean, that's pretty much what taking Mana Barrier is, right? You steal a Mana Barrier from somebody, especially if nobody's broken any like bit of it yet. And that's it. Like, they're not doing damage to you, and you've completely destroyed essentially 20,000 of their shield. I just wish I wish that shield was better visible on a character. World bosses in Korea as of 7.0 now have like a kind of a more traditional MMO health bar where it's like divided into different colors. I don't even know how to explain it, but like every 5% is just like another health bar on top of the health bar that goes down, and a different like color is visible below. It's just a better way to show you that you're doing damage to a boss, okay? It's not the craziest thing in the universe. But I wish that during that patch they went and addressed the whole shield situation and made it so that if a shield is on the player, it actually shows up like above the health bar. Some kind of like half bar that would actually show, you know, a proportion of your health, how much of it is also in shield, something like that. They didn't really do that, because now, you know, you have to pretty much watch somebody's buffs to understand if they have a shield at all and how much it is, and it's just impossible to do that. And yeah, I know, Bobski, it felt like a rushed thing, the whole world boss health bar thing, because it does looks like it does in other games, but like, I don't know, like, it's weird. It looks off. Like, it looks like lower resolution than it should be. I get where they're coming from. It is technically a psychologically better way to display a health bar for something that's important. It actually is. And for so many different reasons, just in general, people understanding that they're doing damage or not and whatnot. But fine, whatever. Okay, cool. Great. They could have... It just felt rushed. It looked really, really rushed. It looked like Kakao said, hey, BDO does this and everybody else does this. Go ahead and put it into Archeage. We'll release it tomorrow. They're like, all right, fine. Put some colors on there. Like, that's what it felt like. I don't know if it got any better in the patches, you know, afterwards, but anyways, it would have been nice if they went and actually redesigned a bunch of other stuff for the health bar and to make things a bit more obvious too. Because like, if somebody has Mana Barrier up, if you're not literally actively watching their buffs, you have no idea why you're not doing damage to them. In fact, if you do an attack to somebody and they have Mana Barrier on, you won't even see it in the combat log that attack happened at all, right? And so there's a lot of problems there with the way that shields on players really kind of hinder understanding of what's happening in the game. right? You could do damage to somebody and it does nothing, and you're not sure whether it evaded or whether it just, you know, got soaked up by some kind of a shield, because there's nothing that tells you it unless you're actively watching everything. Okay, but I've played for so many years, I understand this, right? Fine. That's not my point. My point is that for newer players coming into the game, they're really just stuck, right? You're stuck not really knowing what the hell happened, and it just seems like these people are OP, when in reality, it's just healers are doing all the work, right? They're keeping people alive, as they should be. And it's just not always obvious what's going on in the background of why, you know, what are the healers doing that are so good? Why is Charm so powerful? You know, if they somehow visually showed Charm in a much more obvious way, and like the effects that it does and everything, I think that people would at least get a better understanding of where to look if there's a problem, right? But that's not really the case, and so that's kind of the problem with Archeage, is that everything has to be discovered over years of practice, and it's not something that a lot of people are prepared for. And so we dedicated a whole stream for just talking about secrets, and so we're going to be starting that in a little while, but yeah, it's crazy, right? There's so much to this game that it's just like you have to discover over time. Hopefully this is an interesting and useful day. Yeah, there really isn't, right? Exactly, Bobsky. There's nothing. There is here and there. Tog has put out a lot of good videos for basic stuff, which is awesome. That needs to be the case. Basic stuff is super important. But like, what do you do? Like, you're not going to know to search for these things. Tog put out a video about the UBA component. That's literally a topic we were talking about 2 days ago. Maybe Tog was watching it, and she was like, oh, I could do that. I don't know, but anyways, regardless, unless you know what you're searching for, you're never going to come across that video. And it's a great video. It talks about a lot of secret stuff in this game that exists. To get the portable underwater breathing device, you can literally just pop on wherever, and bam, now you have it on you, right? And then you take it off, and it's got a 20-minute cooldown. Anyways, that said, it exists, cool. What are you gonna? You're not gonna find that out, right? You're not gonna know about it. So yeah, a lot of stuff like that is in this game, and it is good, to be fair. It's actually kind of cool that that's a thing. Wait, what? Yeah, well, there you go. Wait, do you actually not know? Because I can explain it. In fact, that's one of the topics we'll talk about for secret stuff. But yeah, my point is that there's so many things in this game. It's actually kind of cool that there's so many hidden stuff, hidden everything, right? And players have to discover it over years. I think that's actually very cool. But there are some things that are actually pretty damn important. And eight underwater ghosts, yeah. There's some things that are pretty damn important, and like it's just not known. Like the height damage thing, like AoE damage Falloff, and target prioritization, and like all these other things, right? They're just not explained anywhere. People didn't find them out for years, right? But yeah, I mean, people just never go and figure this stuff out, right? People have played for years and didn't know anything about the UBA component, because unless you're actively exploring underwater, which 90% of people don't do, you know, consider yourself lucky, Skull, that you have actually been going around and just hanging out and exploring things, because unless somebody actually told you about it, you wouldn't really know otherwise, right? And people just don't. People don't explore things, they don't look around, they don't try to figure things out. But the more you do, the more you realize there's actually so much other stuff going on. This is one of the things that, like, if you come from, well, we talked about this before, but if you come from WoW or Guild Wars or Final Fantasy or whatever, all these other games, they are very straightforward with mechanics. There's not really too many secrets around the world with stuff, and if there is, they're usually extremely well documented, right? By the way, Skull, are you the same Skull from like 5 years ago? You probably are, right? That's a very familiar name to me, but I can't remember why, because I'm terrible with memory. But yeah, so anyway, so if you come from another game and you come to Archeage, you're not expecting all this secret stuff to be all over the world, right? So you look around Archeage, it's like, oh, it's kind of a cool game, whatever, and then whatever, maybe you leave it or you stop playing, or you never get to the point where you realize that there's all this other stuff that just the game doesn't tell you, unlike other MMOs where usually things are fed to you, right? You play it on everything, yeah, absolutely, I totally know you, Skull. I've seen you all over the place, yep. Oh wait, no. None of those servers are on the list. Never mind. I remember a Skull from from like very early days of Endless/Kraken server on Legacy years and years and years ago. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I have no idea, but I don't know. Maybe somebody had your name. Oh well, that's fine. Anyways, welcome to the stream. What's up? Enla? Same name, GamePro OE. Same thing, Gamer to Core. I had the name GamePro OE my entire history of Archeage. So if you remember me from Enla, hello. I like those days. Those days were the best. And of course, we always reminisce about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I love the very old gameplay. It had so many flaws, to be fair. But I actually do like gameplay better nowadays, but it's just less people, right? Because everybody's kind of lost faith, which I totally get it. Absolutely understand that. Yeah, so I want to go over like secrets and stuff today. We'll do a big stream on that. We can talk about other things that I miss or that you guys find interesting that I may not have talked about. Modern A is a lot less interesting for finding stuff like the UBA. A lot less interesting? Oh, I guess there is no reason to be out and about. It doesn't feel. I totally agree because they've really reduced the amount of stuff all over the world to some degree. Like there's less quests that make you go out to places, right? Like quests that you actually have to follow or that you might want to do. There's less like random equipment with cool images. Those quests are all gone, right? So you have less reason to kind of poke around and get cool images of stuff. Like we'll never get that really cool, you know the Blood Crawler set? That's a cool set that people use. I think I can actually show you it here. And there is actually a black version of this Blood Crawler set that looks absolutely badass. So this is the armor, but there's a black version with like a shield on the shoulder. It's actually one of my favorite armor images in the game, and it's gone. Like, it's not going to be a thing anymore, because that quest is gone. Unless they bring it in as a cosmetic, I guess. But hey, Robin. Hello, hello. Archeage 2, I know. I hope that they really do come up with a better presentation for Archeage 2, that people understand things a bit more, but they still keep cool secrets that people have to find, right? Because I do like the secrets thing. I think there's just too many secrets, right? There's too many secrets and hidden mechanics that players don't know, and it causes problems, actually. And as well as things just not being represented properly, like the shield thing, for example, that we talked about earlier. In Alpha, there were no alts whatsoever. When you ran packs across the ocean, there were like 2 days worth of labor and a big investment. Stakes were high. There were just more reasons to go outside. Yeah, the new trade system has really kind of dumbed down people not really fighting against trade packs, because if I steal a trade pack, and I'm west, of course, and I steal one in east, what am I going to do with it? Run it through a peace zone? Like, that's not something that I want to do, right? There's less reason to go and have conflict in the opposite continent. There's less reason to have conflict on the ocean, because the wealth of what you're transferring over and trading is just not that crazy, right? And yeah, it's kind of changed over the years. They're trying to make it more inviting to new players, but in reality, you know, they've kind of done good here and done bad there, right? It's changed over time. It's just a different system than back in the day. Absolutely. Like, I miss the old fishing raids, right? If fishing was really, really popular, that'd be cool. But I guess it is a little better nowadays, but you don't see as many people just fishing, right? Because you can't really make a raid, because the pools of fish are not infinite. Right, you fish a certain amount and then the pool goes away, so it works a little bit differently now. Anyways, so let's do this. Let's go ahead. We'll start off this. We'll start off the stream with all the hidden mechanics and things. I think a lot of this, I'm still going to be reading chat and everything, and I have water next to me because I need to be drinking this. But we're just going to go over things in kind of a random order of just different stuff. And I'll be talking using this sheet, the Archeage Research and Development link directory. So I'll post it in chat, but on the YouTube video afterwards, it'll be just down below, okay? So you don't have to write out the link you just saw on the screen. It's just scroll down a little bit. So we're going to be talking a ton about all of this stuff, about everything in the list, okay? There's tons of hidden things all over the place. And there's really no... I'm not going to do it in any certain order, but the YouTube video afterwards will have like timestamps of everything that we've discussed, and so hopefully that way it makes it a little bit better for the after stream, right? For the VOD to be kind of scrolled through, especially if there's a topic you want to hear about again, all right? And I'm probably going to make mistakes in this video, so if I do, just call it out. It's fine, right? We're here to talk about these things and have discussions, so... Or if there's something I missed, maybe, you just call it out. It's all good. Absolutely. And of course, I'm sitting here in Marianople, in Gwenedin Memoria, because I need these training dummies for a few of these things, right? Of course, that tends to be why I come here, is I do most of my testing in this area. Not even Carinord, but I like this one a lot better for several reasons. Alright, so, let's start. And I don't even know where to start, because I didn't think about that part. But this is the list that I posted in chat. There's a whole bunch of stuff here, right? Oh my god, what is this? Oh yeah, weapon attack speed. Yeah, alright. So let's just start. Let's start with some of the more important stuff first. Yeah, let's do this by importance. Yeah, let's try to do this by importance, okay? So let's talk about weapon attack speed first. And I hope that these links actually work correctly. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay. So we're going to talk about this first because actually weapon attack speed is going to be something that will be affecting mages and healers as well. And this could actually be as soon as 7.0, like our release of 7.0. Like, Japan's getting 7.0 in like 2 weeks, right, on October 7th. I have no doubt we're going to get ours somewhere after that, like in October, maybe early November. So this is actually coming up. It looks like Japan's actually getting everything bundled together, from vehicle stuff all the way to Mena and Glen, the new Mena, Glen, and Jola. So they're bundling a whole ton of stuff for Japan, and they're probably doing the same for Russia and NAEU as well, just like the previous things that we've seen in the past. So historically, we're probably going to be getting that pretty soon after them, which is pretty cool. That's a massive amount of stuff. Weapon attack speed is extremely important, and will soon matter for mages and healers in the exact same way. So for those that don't know, melee abilities are currently affected by weapon attack speed. And weapon attack speed is actually this little modifier on a weapon that says an attack speed value of 0.8 all the way up to 1.3 on two-handed weapons. And what this means is that your actual melee attacks themselves are sort of modified by this coefficient of 0.8 to 1.3. Okay, let me bring the back browser. So the thing that it's actually modifying is the damage, the attack speed. Attack speed is a bad way to put it. It's affecting the damage, the animation time, and the global cooldown. And again, this is going to be something that will be affecting mages and healers later as well. So this coefficient is applied to... I know, remember when they got buffed accidentally? Yep, that's right, the mage thing. So that'll happen, kind of, but we'll get to that. So, yeah, so this modifier affects all of those things, okay? So on a dagger, for example, a 0.8 attack speed makes it so that you actually do essentially 80% of the damage you would on a dagger with any melee skill, okay? Specifically any melee skill at this point in time. Whereas a 1.3 attack speed on something like a staff for melee skills would actually give a 30% boost in damage. Now, of course, staffs tend to have less melee attack given to them, but actually, you can make that work pretty well. A 30% boost is pretty good. However, the downside is you also affect your animation times and your global cooldowns. And of course, a very good example of this is the dagger versus axe example. So here I have a dagger in my main hand, and I have an axe in my offhand. So all of my attacks are going to be very, very fast right now because they are 20% faster than average, but they do 20% less damage, okay? The axe, on the other hand, as my offhand, means that my offhand attacks, and this is Swiftblade only, are actually doing 10% more damage. But because these Swiftblade attacks are offhand attacks, right, those offhand calculations actually don't get affected by the attack speed or animation time or global cooldown modifiers of these attack speeds. So having an axe in the offhand is just generally better as a Swiftblade user in melee. But if I were to go and switch my dagger and axe, you would see that all of my attacks suddenly are significantly slower. In fact, every single hit of Blade Flurry now has a global cooldown. Whereas when my dagger was in the main hand, there were no global cooldowns for the first two attacks, meaning I could actually mix them with other abilities during those first two attacks, because there's no actual global cooldown triggered. So it's actually quite a noticeable thing. This is actually going to be something that affects mages and healers as well too, right? We've talked about that. And so what's going to be happening is that actually scepters and clubs currently have a 1.2 attack speed. That's actually getting lowered down to 1.0. So when the system comes out, you won't even feel the difference when you're using a scepter or a club, which is a one-handed weapon. But those damn two-handed weapons, oh man. Your staffs and your great clubs are essentially burst bullets of nukes, alright? You're going to nuke people with health if you have a great club. You're going to nuke people with damage if you have a staff. It's a pretty damn massive bonus, but because animation time and global cooldowns are increased by 30%, you've got nukes, but you're not going to be nuking as often, right? So it's going to be much harder to animation cancel in those cases, or actually do things with different animation times, because Firebolt, something simple as Lightning Firebolt, might actually gain a global cooldown. Right, I think it's Lightning Firebolt that doesn't normally have a global cooldown. I don't know, I don't remember. You guys know this better because you guys are mages, right? My point is that these things will feel a lot slower, but do significantly more damage. And this is nicer for people who actually want to slow down their gameplay. For folks who can't deal with all the crazy fast stuff, and that's perfectly fine, you know, if there's too much going on, you can actually use a two-handed weapon, and you're inclined to, because it's slower gameplay, but you're still able to do so much, right? Because the damage is increased. It's a trade-off, right? It's a different gameplay style. It's a very cast time-focused gameplay style, which you can make very good use of, especially with sort of the balance changes that come out later. So attack speed is actually extremely important, and will be important to everybody coming up in a future patch, right? Let me see if there's anything else here that I didn't cover with the attack speed stuff. This is all out of date now. So all this piercing, slashing, 15% damage of play, 15% jam. This is gone. This is actually totally replaced by a new system. And I was going to edit this and like exit this out, or X this out, or strike through it, but don't worry about this stuff. It's not real, okay? We've changed that. We'll talk about it later. The other thing is this. I did want to mention this. So let's say you are having trouble trying to figure out what it is you want to play, right? Whether it is you want a sword in the main hand, a dagger in the main hand, an axe in the main hand, or maybe when you're a mage, you just want to try out the differences between two-handed and one-handed gameplay, right? Because it's actually going to be a pretty massive difference. The balanced arenas actually take this stuff into effect. So if you have a dagger and you go into the balanced arenas, you will have less damage, but faster attack speed, as if you had a dagger in the main world. Your actual weapons that you have in the balanced arenas, like the weapons that are actually equipped on your character, make a massive difference. So if you want to go and try out gameplay with a dagger, put on some crappy dagger that you got off the auction house for 5 gold, go into a sparring arena a few times, and you will notice your gameplay is massively faster, and you'll start to understand sort of that sort of gameplay style, right? The same thing goes for two-handed gameplay versus one-handed gameplay, right? If you're trying out a two-handed build as a mage, you can go into a balanced arena with a staff that you just bought off the auction house for like 3 gold, and try it out and see if you like that gameplay. You'll notice the damage increases massively, but you'll also notice that your gameplay slows down, and maybe that's something you like, maybe that's something you don't like, right? So this stuff is actually very, very good to test in the arenas themselves. Is there anything else from here that I missed? Let's see. Yeah, don't look at this. This stuff isn't right. Offhand weapons do not contribute to melee skill changes or melee animation time. I wrote this article before Swiftblade came out, because this came out a long time ago. But yeah, the offhand attacks and their weapon type does actually apply to those offhand attacks. So like a Swiftblade offhand attack that is crushing, like an axe in the offhand, is actually crushing in the damage calculation for that attack, which is kind of cool. It literally is as if the axe is your main hand weapon for that offhand attack. Like, everything applies, except for animation time and global cooldown, because that doesn't really make sense for your offhand hits, right? Yeah, I think it's pretty much... I think we've gone over everything here for the most part. So, unless there's any questions about these things, let's move on. You can always just ask questions about whatever, and we can go back to it. So let's move on. So this is out of date, but oh god, I really want to talk about that because that's so cool. So it's something I want to do a little bit more, but there's this mass testing initiative that I started around 4.5 to try to get like 50 people together to test some crazy things, okay? And it's very hard to bring together 50 people into a room. Turns out people tend to want to do other things, right? Attack speed for archers, dual daggers, or club doesn't matter. For the archery attacks, there's no real way, Dark Sasuke, to actually take advantage of those. That's correct. So your bow attacks, your archery skills, currently don't matter for your main hand attacks. But you know what? If you have a shadow play skill as an archer, your shadow play skills can be faster if you have a dagger main hand, right? Because the shadow play skills are melee skills, and those are affected specifically, right, for those melee skills. So archers don't really get anything yet. However, with the new musket gun and the new skill tree that's coming out in Korea at some point, that could all change, right? The actual musket might have a higher attack speed, but we have no idea, right? We don't know how it works. Bows currently have an attack speed of 1.0, so archery is just kind of there, right? They just kind of use the 1.0 for everything that's archery related. So, 4.5 Mass Testing Initiative. This is one of the coolest things, and we did a lot. We never really got through it all. I want to do this at some point, but this is old, right? This is a 4.5 test. All of these are tested in 4.5, and some of these have changed minor amounts, but not too much. For example, I think most of this is really the same. So this was a thing where we took a bunch of people together, and we said, how can we break the game? This is where we actually found out about target prioritization. This is where we first learned about AoE damage falloff. This is where we first learned about the actual hit caps for different abilities and what it means, and buff caps and debuff caps and other things. This is the first time we said, wait a minute, this game actually has limits, like speed limits to everything. So this is really, really cool. We only did really a couple of days of testing with stuff, and we didn't get through everything at all. There's so many things that are still untested, and of course, this is before Swiftblade and Malediction, so this is really old stuff, but a lot of it still holds up, and it gives you kind of a better understanding of the game. So, we're not going to go through this entirely, because all the stuff is still there for you guys to look at, but I want to point out a few things. Skills have hit caps, and we know this because some skills tell you that they, affect a maximum of 10 people, or affect a maximum of 8 people, and a lot of skills don't. So, for example, Occultism is a very, very good example where, like, Summon Wraith, if you use Summon Wraith, it will affect 15 plus targets. In fact, sometimes we've seen a cap of 20, and unfortunately, in none of this testing did we find that cap because we only had, like, 16 or 17 people, right? It wasn't as mass testing as we wanted, unfortunately. So some of these might actually have a cap of 20, okay? But for as much as this data tells us, Summon Wraith has a cap of 15 plus, so it'll affect everybody, right? Hellspear only has a cap of 8. And, of course, we go into the whole target prioritization thing of which 8 does it target if there's 11 people around you, right? If there's 11 people around you, which 8 is it going to hit? And that goes based on who loaded into your game client first, and we'll go to that later. We'll talk about that stuff later. So, Hellspear affects a maximum of 8 people. So if there's 9 people around you, 1 person is not getting hit by Hellspear. Not even the damage. Silence affects everyone, at least up to 15 plus, okay? Again, there might be a cap of 20, we didn't test for that, but we've noticed caps of 20 in the game for other things. So there's a lot of things in this game that actually have really, really, really high caps for things. Thwart will affect everybody around you for the most part, but that, we've seen a cap of 20. Health Lift has a cap of 20, so actually if Health Lift is hitting pets, then that's 1 player who is not getting hit by Health Lift, right? So actually having multiple people in your raid using Health Lift is kind of important, but you might even be overlapping with who gets affected by it because they might have loaded into your game clients at the same time. There's craziness there with the way that Health Lift works, and it kind of sucks that that's the way that it is, but again, we have to know these things to play around them, right? So, you're just kind of scrolling through here. Flame Wings affects pretty much everybody, although I think we tested regular Flame Wing, or regular Protective Wings, not Flame Wings from the looks of it. And it does, by the way, Flame Protective Wings actually affects enemies too. It doesn't say that in the description. I kept trying to get them to add it to that, but Flame Protective Wings will affect enemies. So if you're using it, make sure you've pretty much got only your own team covered by it. Because if enemies start to fly in there, they're also protected, right? They're also immune to silence and such, which is kind of a big deal. That's why a lot of people actually use the regular Protective Wings. And just kind of cover certain sections of the battlefield with it. What other interesting things are there? Whirlwind Slash affects 15 plus. That's kind of cool. Remember the old Swordfall, which is now in Malediction? That affects 15 plus. Most of the Battle Rage skills pretty much are going to hit everybody that you are, that are around you or that are in the AoE radius. Sorcery skills are a little weird. Sorcery skills was the first time that we saw this happen, where with Meteor Strike, yes, it's going to hit 15 plus people with possibly a cap of 20, but only 8, in fact, less than 8 got tripped. So something very weird happened with that Meteor Strike, and we never really figured out what that was. But again, this is an example of kind of a weird situation where there's definitely a speed limit cap with the way that this works, because they don't want you to go super crazy with it. But it is still some information that's kind of yet to be totally understood, right? Less than 8 being tripped is a little bit weird. Usually there's a cap of either 8 or 20, and this is like less than 8, so it doesn't make any sense. All right. So this is kind of some cool stuff that we did a long, long time ago. And again, if there's any huge guilds out there that like to kind of explore these things, I very much encourage you guys to get together with like everybody. Get 50 people together and test this stuff again and do this stuff and put it out on Reddit, talk about it, you know, because these are very, very cool things that kind of help people understand gameplay a little bit better, but are hidden mechanics, right? These are hidden things. Players don't generally know about this stuff, right? So... let me scroll through and see if there's anything super crazy. This is actually a good one. So we learned about this earlier than 4.5 testing, but I noted it here. So there's a lot of skills in this game where if you have a certain buff on you, you get a bonus. And some of the most notable skills that we know of there are, well, here's a good one right here, Absorb Life Force, right? And finally, I actually had them make this change in the description, because it didn't always say this. You see in the, I don't know, it's probably very small for you guys, but the combo with Resurgence, I'm sorry, not Resurgence, with Mirror Light, or Blessing, says, when the caster is under the effect of their own blessing, it heals allies within 10 meters of the caster instead of the caster, okay? So actually, if you blessed yourself and then use Absorb Life Force on somebody, everybody around you gets healed. 13% max health. What is it? 13% max health over like 8.5 seconds or whatever. It's actually based on their max health, by the way. So if you're doing this on a tank, they're getting healed way more than doing this with a glass cannon standing next to you, right? With somebody who has less health. So that's kind of interesting too. This is actually kind of a pretty important buff. You're healing people based on their own max health. Anyways, fun fact. If you steal blessing from somebody with Leech, that counts as your own blessing. So there have been situations now that I play Immortalist where I steal Blessing from somebody and use Absorb Life Force, and now I'm affecting my allies around me. Instead of healing myself, I'm actually healing people around me, which is kind of funny. So there's a little bit of a weird mechanic with the way that Leech steals something, and now it, like the mechanics of that the mechanics of the buff now make it so that it belongs to you, right? Sorry, I'm jumbling up words here, but there's a lot I want to talk about. So this is actually one place where we got the description changed correctly. There are some others where it has not been changed correctly yet. So Witchcraft Mirror Warp is one. You see how... Yeah, see how it says cast sleep on enemies if you pass through them with Mirror Warp, as long as you have Resurgence on you. But it doesn't say under the effects of your own Resurgence when it should. You have to actually be... You have to cast Resurgence on yourself and then use Mirror Warp, and then this combo works. So similar to how Absorb Life Force, it has to be your own blessing. This has to be your own Resurgence. It doesn't say that there, but there are some things in the game like that. Holy Bolt, I think, has the same thing. So only your blessing on someone gets Holy Bolted. So buffs actually have owners. Buffs and debuffs have owners associated with it. When you Hellspear somebody, their Hellspear Impale buff belongs to you. The game understands that and has given it that information. So when you bless somebody with holy or with mirror light, right? Where's vitalism here? When you bless somebody with mirror light and they have your blessing, then when you cast Holy Bolt, it will also heal people that you blessed within 15 meters, right? That's the way that Holy Bolt works. It lets you heal an additional target, not just yourself too, right? But that's kind of funny because if you steal blessing from somebody, I don't know how that would work with Holy Bolt. Probably wouldn't at all, right? I don't think that doesn't really make any sense. So just some interesting little mechanics there that we kind of figured out over time that I feel are kind of worth pointing out. So this is a very interesting page. I really love the old stone site. We tried to glitch the hell out of this one. Yeah, I remember that. There's a few things that require a boat that we never really got into, but man, it's really, really cool stuff. So let's move on to the next thing. You guys can always look at this whenever you guys want to. Right, next stuff. Let's look here. We were down here. We talked about this. If you didn't know, these Magithropters. Why does it sound weird to me? That's what they're called, right? Yeah, Magithropters. That's how I normally pronounce them. So Magithropters tend to be slower than regular gliders. Let me show you guys here. So Magithropters have some weird different stats than gliders, okay? And you guys have probably noticed this, of course, right? If you're using a Magithropter like the Cloud, you're going to be actually, once this buff runs out, you will actually be, on average, slower than a glider, but your initial height is actually higher, right? And your cruising ability is actually better too. You won't fall as much, or at all, if you're just holding S, right? If I'm holding S with the Cloud, I don't fall or lose height whatsoever. So that's really interesting. It does mean that gliders are technically the fastest, especially the Sky Emperor glider, which is the collection endpoint, like end game achievement glider for getting every other glider pretty much, or, you know, whatever's on this list, right? This Sky Emperor is great, because not only is it very high in everything, but its normal speed... Oh wait, no, Sky Emperor's a Magithropter, never mind. Okay, never mind. Sky Emperor is not actually as fast as a glider. It just is because of the buffs that it has, right? Because of the buffs that you can... You know, that's the way that the Sky Emperor glider itself works. Technically, it's a Magithropter, though, not a glider. Okay, well, good to know. Anyways, just fun little facts that I think most people don't know. One other thing I wanted to mention there with the Magithropter versus gliders... oh, yes, this thing. So if you don't already know, and I think it's starting to become more public, but this is the only true flight glider we have in the game. It is the Dragon Slayer's glider, and you see its gliding ability is a question mark, because it is literally a question mark, right? There is no very high to it. There is no moderate or anything. It is, when you use this glider, you are not falling or losing height at all. When you push S, you actually go up, and when you push W, you really go down. Like, you really go down towards the ground, right? This is the only true flight glider we have in the game currently, and I think it's a bug, but don't tell anybody that, because if you upgrade this glider, it loses true flight. Okay, but in Korea, that's not the case. In Korea, if you upgrade this glider, it does not lose true flight. It still has that and gets all the other abilities for it. So it's a little weird that this achievement glider that we have now, by the way, the achievement to get this glider is just to do 50 red dragons, like 50 red dragon instances. You just have to open up 50 of those pouches that you get, essentially, and then you get this Dragon Slayer's glider. The only true flight glider that we've got. It's just an unnormalized Kraken glider, like it was in the old days. Yep. Yeah, the very old days. And I don't think we ever had the unnormalized Kraken glider, right? Yeah, they never gave that to us at any point in time. So, but on Korea they did, right? In Korea there's actually several gliders, generally from world bosses, that have true flight associated with them. And the Kraken glider was one of them, but we never ended up getting those. So yeah, this is essentially the unnormalized Kraken glider. That's right, Skull. Totally. And now it's an achievement that actually is accessible by anybody, which is kind of cool. A lot of people still don't know about it, so still worth mentioning. Okay, so I think that just about covers the Magithropter glider information. Let's talk about... Oh, this is a good one, actually. Attack speed versus global cooldown. We have a little chart for this, too. I don't know if this has changed over the years. It probably has, right? But we could do a little test and see if it's about right. My personal attack speed is 500 exactly. Amazing. And so if we literally just go to 500, it should be... Oh, God, that's not a very good chart. It needs to be between... Or just a little bit... below 67.5, and mine is 66.7. So actually, yes, this is probably still very much relevant. So you can see it kind of curves a little bit off, and they actually made it so that there's a hard stop at 2,000 now. So at 2,000 attack speed, there's no way to get more than 2,000 attack speed. So that is something kind of interesting, too. I should mention something I only learned a few days ago, or yesterday on stream, because I don't play a mage, but cast time actually has a limit, a lower limit of 40%. So you cannot go below the 40% cast time amount. So like here, where it says cast time, doesn't go below 40%. There is a real limit there. So also a fun fact, something I never knew because I don't play those classes, I never thought about it. But then other people brought it up to me yesterday on stream. I'm like, oh, look at that, still learning something new in Archeage every day. That's cool. So yeah, so that's the fun little attack speed thing. This chart is also viewable on that link that I put out earlier. All that stuff is up there. Let's go to some other stuff here. We tested the Golden Wyvern, that was kind of fun. Now everybody has one, so it's not really a big deal. We did some bubble mount research. I guess it's slightly relevant. Back when it first came out, fun fact about the bubble mount, but you know how it goes and pops, right, after 5 minutes? Well, if you're in a Nui, it won't take damage. So you can actually have a bubble mount out infinitely. Don't do this. There is a potential to break the game here. Don't do it. I guess technically anybody can just go and like go in and pop it themselves from outside a Nui, right? They just roll it out of Nui and then I guess not a big deal, but yeah. Anyways, that's a thing. What else? Receives full player damage, cannot give or take collision damage, and it's actually viewable on the radar as a 5,000 hit point rowboat called Bubble Splash. It's classified as a rowboat. Hey, Sensitive, I'll link it again, sure. And in the YouTube video, it'll just be in the description. Yeah, put them in the hero hall, right? You can do that. You just fill up with bubbles, I guess. In fact, if multiple people go and open up the, like, if multiple people use Bubble Splash together at the same time, I actually have one right here. So if, like, there's 18 people here right next to me and we all at the very same time push F and use this, it will make 18 bubbles. It's ridiculous, okay? So there's a little fun thing you can do just for the heck of it, right? I'm going to pop this thing to get it out of the way. Nice. Takes 5,000 damage. Alright. So, let's move on to the next thing. Oh, you guys didn't see that. Haha. Oh, whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't care. It's not a big deal. Look, I had a bubble here. It was there, right? Prove it to you. There. It's inside of the, it's inside the combat log. I have one. I always have one with me because I actually like to use the bubble mount in like the middle of some kind of a big fight because you know some guy is going to get distracted by that thing. And hopefully it's not my own team, but I just think it's funny, right? If I see that thing pop off in the middle of a fight. Are you saying you can have 48 bubbles a day? Absolutely, because it's got a 30-minute cooldown. And you can. Or you could just have as many as you want at one point in time and then just like make sure to pop it. Make sure the 5-minute timer is over only while it's inside the Nui, then you have a bubble forever. At least until servers restart, right? At least until maintenance. So yeah, it's just fun little stuff about the bubble mount. So we did a little bit of research about the fastest mounts over long periods of time. And this is kind of cool. I think a lot of people are interested in this, but don't spend too much time thinking about it. And this is old stuff, okay? Oh, actually, it's pretty up to date, isn't it? But it doesn't include things like the... oh gosh, what are some good examples that this doesn't include? It doesn't include, no, it really has that. Yeah, Stormwraith, Kieran, Reindeer, Manticore, Stormdarter, these are all the fastest mounts still today. I don't, like fastest in terms of long periods of time, okay? There's short burst mounts that are really, really good. And those are kind of on here as well because they're still technically good, like the Leomorphs, for example. But, let's talk about mounts in general. Okay, let's do a couple things on mounts that are kind of important. You can look at this. There's some average speeds here that are kind of cool, whatever. It's okay. It's not the most important stuff in the universe. People will still generally use the Stormwraith Kieran because it has like a little invis, right? It can get you out of combat. It's kind of nice. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't include all those new stuff. Absolutely. Nax? Okay. It doesn't include all those new things, absolutely, but it does include the Andelf Dracora, which is pretty similar to those Kyrios Badge, Shop, Gallant, Pearl Steed, and Onyx Steed mounts, right? I think it's very, very similar, but you're right, it doesn't include those. That's a very good point. But let me talk about mounts a little bit here, because there's some cool stuff that some of these do. Some of these mounts have physics-based movement leaps, and what that means is that just like Dropback, so like the Dropback from Shadowplay, which I have Shadowplay and I don't use Dropback, but just like Dropback, it will actually stop all physics on your character when you trigger it. So if you're falling, it will stop everything. It will recalculate all the physics at that point and then push you, right? Actually, Dropback is not even a push. Dropback is a fixed movement, but these leaps will push you at that point. It's a physics-based push. This means that, yes, Drop Back on a Leomorph has a 15-meter backwards leap on a Gallant Leomorph, which is pretty cool, right? 15 meters, but in reality, if you're, obviously, I mean, this is obvious, right? But in general, this is what physics-based means, is that if you're up higher and you use this to get lower, you don't go 15 meters, you go several hundred meters, right? Or there's a potential to go really, 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 really far if you're jumping off the mountain. You can also use this because it resets all the physics when you trigger it. You can use it to avoid fall damage, just like Drop Back, just like Blade Blast, but we won't talk about how it's broken right now. and just like some other abilities in this game, right? Rocket Boots technically also reset your position. So these Rocket Boots, which is a hidden item in the game you can get from Freedich boxes on an extremely abysmally low chance, but when you trigger the Rocket Boots themselves, they will restart your physics wherever you use them and then pull you or push you up into the air. Fun fact about Rocket Boots, actually, while we're on the topic, is that based on how far you fell down, your Rocket Boots will actually bring you back up an almost majority of the height that you lost. So it's a little weird if you use it from an extreme height and then right before the ground you use your Rocket Boots, because you're actually going to go up almost the entire way back up. It's kind of funny. I also have like fall damage reduction on my Rocket Boots, which is an Onyx gem that can only come from Jester's Crates. Jester's Crates Lunafrosts. Where are my fall damage boots? There they are. So these Lynx Lunafrosts, they don't exist in the better crates. They only exist as Lunafrosts from like the Jester's ones, I believe. Alright, on other random things that I'm talking about. If you want a little bit of extra fall damage reduction on something. Yeah, so anyways, back to mounts, because we're getting distracted here. But back to mounts. So something that's really cool is that, yes, these physics-based movements are really important, actually, because it means that if you are going up a hill, you get less value out of it. If you're going down a hill and you use physics-based movements or physics-based leaps for mounts, you actually get more of a distance. You can create more of a distance gap between you and an opponent who's chasing, or you can go and catch up to somebody who's trying to run away from you, right? So there's a little bit of understanding in how that works, and timing and precision to use and abuse those physics-based leaps. In fact, in the water, you'll see me doing that all the time. I use these 4 mounts. I use both elks, a gallant elk and a non-gallant elk, because they do not share cooldowns. And in the water, I will use this constantly on hotkeys and everything to make massive, massive distance between me and an opponent if I'm trying to get away, or I will use this in conjunction with all my abilities if I'm trying to catch up to a boat. I can cover an absolutely massive distance in short periods of time, because I'm just literally mount swapping constantly. And as you see, by the time I'm finished with the last one, the first one's cooldowns are now back, and I can go ahead and switch right back to the elks. These are all free mounts, actually. Like, you can... Oh, am I inside the Nui? That was weird. Oh my god, I don't have mana. I have to get mana on this pet. He's actually out of mana. Hilarious. That's how much I use this thing. Alright, and don't even let it regenerate its mana at all. It's very tired. So, yeah, so I actually use that to abuse water combat, right, and water movement, because I can just use that. It's actually faster than most boats. And, yeah, so the Kieran's jump is a 5th one. If I had the Kieran, I would actually add it here as a 5th one, and I would use it as another leap as well, because it also does not share cooldowns with the other mounts. The only actual abilities that share cooldowns are literally the same abilities with the exact same IDs. If one mount has a different ID for a skill than a different mount, then they won't share cooldowns. So all of these mounts actually have, I believe, the same run. And I might be wrong about that, actually. Let me try the Gallant version of the Elk. No, okay, so they actually have a different run. But if I went between these two, so my Gallant Leomorph, you'll see that its run is on cooldown, because I used it on the Gallant Elk, right? So those actually share the same cooldowns, because they're technically the same skill. This is also funny because that's how these are ordered. You'll notice sometimes that these the abilities on the mounts are like in a different order, and it's really odd. It's just because they are literally they're sorted by ID, and sometimes they mess up and they don't even show up in the correct order. Like you probably noticed that once or twice when you take out a mountain. Something feels off. It's because 2 of these skills are switched until you like despawn and bring them back out. It's just something happens in the game where it bugs and it just reorders them when it shouldn't be. So just little fun facts there while we're on the topic of how these mounts kind of work. That's why this list here is a little bit out of date. I do try to notice, or I try to note where there's a physics-based leap involved. So like the reindeer has a physics-based leap. I think that reindeer shares the leap with an elk, but I might be wrong about that. Oh no, it doesn't, because the reindeer actually has a very special leap. It actually has a much, much further leap than everything else, so it's a different skill. In fact, damn, now that I say that, I should probably get a reindeer, huh? I think it's just for diligence. Let me see here. Reindeer, where is that guy? I'm pretty sure it's here. Where is it? There it is. Okay, the Black Reindeer. So this one has Elegant Leap. Oh, this might actually share the same cooldown, because this is also called Elegant Leap. I'll have to look into this later and see if that's the case. I don't know. Oh, I think it does actually share cooldowns with the Gallant Elk. But somebody else may know this answer already, or maybe you already have both. Maybe not, I have no idea, because they're both called Elegant Leap and they both take you 25 meters forward. It's a little bit strange. They have the same name and the same description, but totally different IDs, so I'll have to look at this later myself. Or you can do it as well, just using the Codex, right, the Archeage Codex, which you can Google if you don't know what that is. You can search pretty much everything, including buffs and debuffs too. Alright, so, you guys didn't see what happened on my screen, but I was just kind of, flipping through the mounts here, and they just have the same ability as all, right? So sorry about that. I still had the browser up at the time. Not really paying as much attention, but what can you do? Alright, so let's move on to some other stuff now. I think we've pretty much covered a lot of topics with the mounts and speed and how some of the abilities work and how physics-based movement works and how it can be abused in different ways and how you can use it for your own positioning and catching up to people or getting away from people. Let's go to... oh, this was actually really cool. Hellhound is interesting, but now that we don't have aggressive mode, I don't think this works as well. Hellhound is a really good pet, by the way. It's actually really good, but I don't think people really use it as much because it's still a lot of single target stuff. Ah, here we go. So this was the first actual... We did research and development episodes a long time ago, and we divided them into, like, literally episodes and the stuff that we were kind of looking into. For example, this was where we really understood where diminishing returns comes from, and we really started putting values to diminishing returns. This was a very long time ago. We also, because I've always been curious, that crits tend to sound louder. What did we find out for that? Do they? Gosh. If Harpoon is used on something, the line will completely disappear in 3 minutes. I forgot about that. Oh, here it is. Critical damage and healing sounds. I thought it was crazy, but it's true. Critical damage and healing sounds are significantly louder than regular hits. This actually includes healing. I'm not crazy. Well, there you go. If you've ever thought that you went crazy because your crits sound louder, this is why if you're a crit build, which pretty much everybody is at this point because everybody goes crit rate, the game is very loud for you, right? Obviously, everything sounds like a big boom. But yeah, we tested it, I guess, during that stream, and it worked. We actually have the stream VOD right here, too, but I don't know if that's still there anymore. It should be. Actually, all of them should be on my YouTube page. Man, so much stuff. Episode 2, what do we do here? Cars, boats, cars that are boats. I think we just took... We took a car across the water because we harpooned it, and it actually worked. Oh my god. How do rudders work on different ships? Oh my god, whoa, this is cool. I haven't read this in a long time. We have some key things here. There's no hidden stats on rudders, meaning that all of the rudders at Zephyr level are the same regardless of ships. That's not true, though, is it? Oh, it is true. The only difference is the weight. That's right, that's right, that's right. So Zephyr is mostly the same. Alternatively, if you haven't invested into this, do that. Okay, what else did we do? This also means that using an upgraded loot song rudder would make its effects work on fishing boats and clippers as well. And while we couldn't test that today, it's pretty obvious that if you have the money to make your clipper turn faster and you actually use your clipper in combat, doing so may not be the worst investment. Fun fact. The only problem is you have a much bigger weight because the rudder weighs a lot more in the clipper, so you'd actually lose a lot of max speed. 1,000 kilograms is about 0.2 top max speed reduction or something like that. I think that's mostly the same, but there's some other calculations involved there too. This is totally gone. What did we do here? Oh, Moonsand Fox. That's the one that can actually charm somebody. We don't have that in Archeage Unchained yet. I really want that, because charm is so powerful. Flame Protective Wings Micromanagement. They're very good. It gives you and allies and enemies 29% reduction. Damage reflection, blah, blah, blah. It was actually broken at the time, because it would actually make you take 1 magic damage, so they ended up fixing that. But it's still kind of crazy. Flame Protective Wings in-game says that it gives you a 20% reduction in damage, but it's really still about 50 in reality. You can go and test this yourself. It's somewhere around 40 to 50%, even though it says 20. And I don't know why that is. But yeah, it actually works a little bit differently than what it says here. Flame Protective Wings is actually really, really, really good. It makes you silence immune. It also works on enemies, so you want to make sure that you're mostly covering your team instead of the enemy team with Flame Protective Wings. But It's really good. And you know what else? Because it prevents silence. If somebody uses if somebody uses those the snow lines on you, right, from Malediction, snow lines technically silences you. It doesn't prevent you from casting a skill, but what it does, the debuff that it does, is technically a silence, which means that while it does stop any ongoing casting or ongoing cast times or channels like Flame Protective Wings, it won't work under Flame Protective Wings, and it won't work against the person who's using Flame Protective Wings because they're technically immune to silence. So all that the Ghost Ghastly Snow Lines do for Malediction, if you use it against somebody who's actually running and using Flame Protective Wings, it'll just push them further back into the enemies, which is awesome, right? It means that whoever's using Flame Protective Wings, they're now safer because they're getting pushed more into the allies of their team. So just a little fun fact about Ghastly Pack and how its silence works against silence immunity. Okay, let's move on. What else is in this list? Man, we found so many things in this game over the years. It's crazy. I don't know how I'm going to document this stuff on YouTube. Like, it's just crazy. All right, 1v1 usage, and we talked about that. Oh, we talked so much about Protective Wings in general, but I think I pretty much covered most of it. Oh gosh, yeah, we did a lot of Imprison and Ancestral versions on boats. A lot of them end up breaking, but if you actually use Mist, oh man, that's crazy. If you use Mist Imprison, you know, the wall Imprison, on the side of a boat, and maybe your boat is stopped, okay, but cannons can't actually go through that. So the cannonball shots, if somebody's firing against you, they won't go through this Mist Imprison, which is, that's fun, I don't know. And since cannon shots don't actually break Imprison, it just works for a little bit. I don't know, it's just a silly thing, but I don't know, if you have defense and you're on a boat, I guess, I don't know, you can use it once, probably, assuming your boat's not moving. There's probably some other applications there that we haven't really thought of, too. Oh my gosh, there's so many things. No, I'm just going over tons of secret things in this game, Andromeda. That's the topic for today, is we're just going over all the secret things that we've learned about Archeage over the years, and that we know up to this point. And a lot of these things are a little bit out of date, but I'm just kind of going through the lists, you know? It's a lot of fun stuff. Actually, I haven't looked at a lot of these things in a long time, so it's always good to get a little bit of a refresher. Like, I forgot that the bubble mount doesn't actually take damage in a Nui, so it won't actually... Like, it'll stay up forever if the 5-minute timer runs out while it's in a Nui. Yeah, I'll send you guys the link again. It's the Research and Development link directory. So it's in the R&D Discord. We have it there, and this is this link to that. Have you ever seen Meteor plus Play Dead? Or Shadowcloak plus any ability in the game? Have I ever seen it? What do you mean? What do you mean by, like, Meteor plus Play Dead? Skull, you may have to... yeah, better describe that one. I'll let you do that. I'm going to keep going here, because I'm going to keep looking. What was the next thing we want to talk about? We're up to these ones. We're up to the latest stuff now. God, I love Stagger. I can't wait to talk about this. But let's go through this stuff now, right? Spec Sorcery and Occultism? And cast Meteor and hit Play Dead while it's falling? Sure, let's do it. I love it. I believe there is an actual skill changer around here. I think they're, like, right there, or right here. I could be wrong, though. Let's just go to one on the map, like there. I swear that there was somebody else in Memoria that was closer to where I test stuff. Oh, there it is. He's right here. Okay. So let's do... What did you say? Sorcery? Oh, and Occultism, right. Of course. Alright, let's go. So, cast Meteor and hit Play Dead while it's falling. Cast it versus an enemy. Yeah, so I'm guessing that it's either not going to hit, right? Something like that. Let's take a look. So, we can do this pretty easily here. I don't need to put anything on my quick bar. Alright, we're going to turn on Combat Log. Oh, I hit him. Oh, the monster takes damage and doesn't reset it? It won't work versus that thing? Oh, I see. So it won't reset the enemy. I see. So this is a PvE only thing. Is that what you mean? Oh, I see. And it would work the same way as Shadowcloak. Yes, because Shadowcloak essentially loses all of your aggro, but doesn't really in PvE, because otherwise that would be, like, really weird to work. It wouldn't work really well. But yeah, try it in a dungeon. I see what you mean. That's how you soloed your HO8 earring. That's amazing. Wow. That's crazy. That's so... you have to have so much patience for that, Skull. Holy crap. It takes way too long to make that happen, but that's good to know. Okay. Well, at least it's documented. I don't want to do it right now because there's a bunch of other stuff I want to do as well. But I see your point. I see where that works. Alright, you really want me to try it? Okay. I don't know what I would... what would I try it against? Because we're about to talk about stuff where I need to be here, but that's okay. Let's go find an enemy then. Let's go. You guys really want this? Let's do this. I have no problem with that. Where can I find a mob? And also, I need to make sure I don't actually kill the mob with Meteor. What does my Meteor do? 3,000 damage? What do these chickens have? 500 health? Go to, like, Misc or something? There's actually level 40 mobs with a bunch of health nearby. Because there's a bunch of secret quests around here, right? We were just doing that, like, a few weeks ago. And Andromeda, you happen to be on that stream, too. So we just go over there. Should be perfectly good, right? I think. It's just past the housing here. It's like right here. We just go try it on them. I could have spec'd... I know that happened all the time with... not Assassination. Back when it was called Assassination, right? As a part of the Abyssal skill set. I would do that all the time, too. You'd kill mobs, and they wouldn't even be able to target you, technically. Because you just killed them too fast or whatever, and they wouldn't be able to target you during Assassination. Or at this point, right, during the Shadowcloak for Malediction. Alright, here we go. These guys have 20,000 health, so that's perfect. Okay. So, let's do Meteor. He's moving around a little bit, but this should be okay. So they take damage, and they don't reset. Bam, look at that. He's going to be permanently at that health, right? Is he really permanently at that health? That's so weird. Alright, I guess the game doesn't really know what to do, and it just kind of leaves it there. Not the craziest thing in the universe, but hey, the more you know. Oh, he's still in combat. Wow, he is still in combat. This guy isn't. That's so interesting. Is he going to be in combat forever? Alright, we're going to sit here while we look at new stuff, and then maybe... I'll have him track targeted as well. I'm curious. It should be forever, I guess. There's probably at some point where it resets actually, but this is why if you kept doing it over and over and over again, you would keep resetting that time, right? You keep meteoring it constantly. Try a bigger spell like Arc Lightning. I don't think that one would work, though. Oh, it never resets? Alright, we're going to see. But Arc Lightning wouldn't work because you'd give it electricity, and the electricity will get applied back to you once Play Dead is over, right? But we can try, I guess. Unless server resets? Oh, wow. That's really good. Just stay dead? Okay. Alright, let's do it. Oh, hey! Oh, hold on. Wait, do I even have any abilities to kill this? Oh, God, I don't. Come on. Melee attack. I want my Gildastar. Wait, no, this doesn't give a Gildastar. Just as a chance to give you some random secret items, which I didn't get. Alright, so let's try this again. We're going to do Arc Lightning into Play Dead. Yeah, okay, same thing. So Play Dead essentially does the same thing as what Shadowcloak does, or what Assassination does. Oh god, but now they targeted me because they still had the buff while, oh crap. No, I broke it. They still had the debuff while I was, I know, I couldn't stay dead. I couldn't stay dead that long, because Play Dead has a, you're only prone for 8 seconds, right? And so they still had the debuff when I came back from playing dead, essentially. So that's it. That's the only reason. That one lasts a while, God's Whip? Nah, it doesn't work. Now, if I do Play Dead now, they should reset, right? So that works in that sense. But yeah, so if you are already in if you already use Shadowcloak or you use Play Dead after you do an attack, like the attack still registers essentially. So that makes sense, and that just keeps them in combat forever. All right, I'm done with this. Let's move on to other topics because I want to get to other things too. There's a lot I want to go through today. And while we do that, let me go back to town. Actually, I don't even want to do it that way. I'm just going to port there. I'm just going to port to Memoria. while I go over the next stuff. Oh, my caps lock is on. Nice. All right, next topic. Next stuff. So, we talked about a lot of these things. Let's go to more of the recent things. A lot of the stuff that people still don't actually know, and of course I try to shout it from the rooftops because it's pretty important stuff. So, first one here, height damage bonus, which had mostly gone completely undiscovered for about 7 years. And when this was, when I put this out, Korea went and tested it as well, and they were very, very shocked. Let's put it that way. They were just as flabbergasted as we were, because they were like, what the hell, man? Play this game for 7 years. And it turns out, if you just stand at a higher elevation of somebody else, you will do more damage. That's the most simple thing in the universe to test. That still completely went unnoticed. For example, I use Shoot Arrow against the Scarecrow, and it does 663 damage, and I can keep doing Shoot Arrow. It'll do about 663 damage, right? Pretty much around the same amount. Now I have max stacks in some of this, so I do a little bit more damage, okay? But it's pretty much the same amount. If I just jump up here to the staircase, and I'm a little bit higher than the Scarecrow, you'll notice that my damage increases by a pretty significant amount, right? It's a non-zero amount, and it's a linear increase, meaning the higher up you go, the more damage you do. It doesn't curve off, it's actually linear. But there is a point where it starts at, and it's actually it's like a burst of damage right at that point. So let's go back to the browser here, and you'll see that right at the very beginning of this, there's a spike in damage. And all you need to do to trigger the spike, honestly, is to just jump. It's like half a meter or something. It's not even half a meter, it's just like an extremely low amount of just being above the opponent, and you're already going to do about 6 to 8% damage. Melee can take advantage of this literally by jumping, honestly, but they have to like time their jump versus ping to make sure that the damage is applied when the game thinks that you're at the highest point of the jump. A little bit of a weird situation there. But for the most part, mages and archers, and theoretically healers too, we did see some, I believe healing is also a part of this too. Anybody can take advantage of this just by standing up on like a tower, or just getting on their siege tank or something and shooting down technically at other things. Because the way this works, and I can bring up paint for this. So the way this works is that, so you might be some elevation from somebody else, right? You could be standing up here. This is me, the archer, and there's a dude down here that you're shooting at. The only thing that matters is the actual elevation difference. Is literally, it's this difference. Okay, this distance does not play a role, so that's not it. It is just the elevation difference. This this y-axis. Why can't I see my mouse cursor? This y-axis difference between where you are when the damage is calculated versus where your opponent is when the damage is calculated. This is why actually, if you use like Meteor or something and then you teleport 100 meters in the air, when the damage is calculated, you're already 100 meters in the air, and all of that linear damage bonus makes it so that you do more damage to your opponent, that's, you know, down here, right? Another fun fact about this is that, gosh, what was I going to say? There's something else that I wanted to bring up about it. I totally forgot. Yeah, I don't remember. But yeah, so height damage bonus is actually it's kind of a big deal, and for the most part, this has gone totally unnoticed for so many years. What are you saying, Andromeda? Wonder if it starts before or after you cast? Yeah, so like I was saying there is, it's when the damage is calculated, right? So like with Meteor is the best example. And a lot of people do that, right? They'll actually try to kill off a bunch of people in Aegis Isle that way, right? They'll cast Meteor, or they'll use like Lightning Meteor or something and then teleport back up really high, or they'll fall down and use Wave Meteor and then teleport up 100 meters into the air because that's where their magic circle was. That's actually a valid strategy, not just because it does a lot of damage and you can sneak it in, but because when you teleport up 100 meters in the air, you're doing 100 meters worth of height damage bonus to somebody. And you know how much that is? That is a lot. It's about 60%, actually. You do about 60% more damage to those people. We did test some higher numbers here. Where was it? Do I have it listed here? I don't think I do. But we tested about 50 and 60 meters, and that was about like 40 to 50% damage bonus. Like this is a linear scale, so it just keeps going up and up and up. It is really crazy, actually. So there's some other things in here. Oh, height damage does not affect healing. Okay, apparently that's a thing. We did actually test that, and it does not get affected by healing. That's so strange, though. I wonder why. Oh, and I didn't I don't think I mentioned it here, but it does affect siege damage. So if you shoot down at something with your siege tank, or with your cannonballs on a boat, you will do more damage with the siege attacks as well. Again, based on what the actual Y difference is between you and your opponent when the calculation occurs, okay? So a lot of crazy things here. It does actually work on dots, so damage over times. It does affect AoE abilities, right? Just like Meteor, that doesn't need a target. And what's kind of crazy is that, yeah, since it works on dots, too, you use your Meteor or whatever, and everybody's now electrified, and they're taking damage over time. You teleport 100 meters into the air, and now they're taking more damage over time based on this height damage bonus, this linear height damage bonus that you've applied, right, that you're taking advantage of. So, yeah, height damage bonus is insane. And, again, it's mostly gone unnoticed. Turns out float back in archery back in the old days of 2015 actually was pretty good, but we didn't really know why. Now I kind of want float back. But yeah, so some cool things here that exist with height damage bonus, and it gives you a better kind of understanding of why positioning is important in combat. Why, you know, where you are versus where your opponent is all really, really matters, especially here, right? An archer can really take advantage of this quite a bit, and you have to know how to play around that and how to actually, you know, how to counter it, right? You also want to be higher than them, and you want to be higher than your opponents in general if you are trying to do extra damage. So, let's see. There's some other things here, but yes, this affects everything. We tested like Fervent Healing, and that did not give a healing bonus, so that's where this comes from. Yeah, let's move on to the next thing. Oh, we don't need to be here. We need to be here. Alright, height damage bonus. We talked about it. Cool. Again, if there's any questions about things we've talked about, just feel free to bring them up. So let's go into how loot drop rate works. This is kind of this anecdotal thing. It's been anecdotal for so many years. And, you know, oh, it works this way or that way. We did it. We actually found proper ways to test this, and we proved everything. Okay? We finally figured it out. So this is how... let me answer this question first, and we'll go into this big topic. All right? Always Gaming, what's a good elemental mage DPS in this game? Pretty much anything with sorcery, because sorcery does a lot of sort of combos with elements, right? In fact, sorcery works really, really well even with things like Battle Rage, but that tends not to be used as much because people want to increase their DPS or increase their survivability in other means by like bringing in Malediction for more DPS or bringing in Songcraft for more DPS or Aromancy or Shadowplay and all these other things for more CC or for more survivability with like Aromancy or for more damage with Shadowplay. There's a lot of different gameplay styles with mages and the options that you get. So there's not really a best answer there, but just pick 3 that you like and try it out. You can't really go wrong with a lot of different mage builds, honestly. It's just a different gameplay style, each one having their own weaknesses and strengths. You just kind of have to learn and adapt to, and then you'll still end up switching your class just based on the situation that you're in. So like in PvE, you might switch and use a different class than you would in PvP, right? You might want to farm mobs with a different class than you kill people. That tends to be how it works, especially depending on who you're fighting or what kind of situations you're in, or if you're like doing world bosses or something. So maybe some other mages can give you some tips if you have more specific questions. Always Gaming, that was me. Whatever that noise was, that was me. Sorry about that. I hate that. I never know what it is. I know you guys all have the same problem. Anyways, so hopefully, yeah, if you have any other specific questions, maybe chat can help with more specific answers there. So loot drop bonus, okay? And how loot drop rate works. So here are the facts behind loot drop rate. The idea is that loot drop rate is actually calculated. Yeah, exactly, yeah, something was disconnecting as well. I don't know what it was. Literally, I didn't touch anything, so welcome to my life. Anyways, so loot drop rate is actually something that's calculated on a specific loot drop itself, okay? So when loot drops, like literally when a mob is dead, when a world boss dies, what happens is the game reaches out and looks at all the different people who are in the raid that earned the drop. It looks at all those people, and it looks at all those people who are actually capable of rolling for it. So they have to be within like 200 meters or something. So if you're within 200 meters or whatever it is, and you're able to roll for it, it'll take every one of those people's loot drop rates, add them together and get an average. And that is the loot drop rate for the world boss or for the actual mob that dies. So if you're killing a world boss, you actually want everybody to have as high loot drop rate as possible because you want more drops, right? A higher chance to get what you want. If you try to abuse this with something like Loot Master, right, or maybe you have a co-raid or something, what it's going to do is it's still going to say, hey, who is within region, like who is within the capabilities to loot this thing? And I don't care if you're a Loot Master or not, because you could still drop a coin purse, right? And a coin purse is on a loot table, so coin purses are not a part of those Loot Master drops. And other things aren't either. So even with Loot Master, it'll still reach out, look at everybody who's nearby. So if we're talking about like a map here, 200 meters, it'll be like, all right, listen, anybody in this range, whoever's around the death, all of your loot drop together is calculated, as long as you're in the raid that this was dropped for. So yes, it does mean, it is totally confirmed, you do need everybody to be loot potting for specific world bosses if you're really trying to get a drop of something. Just keep in mind, because people have been complaining to me for some reason, because I put this out and then they're like, oh no, we tried this and we still haven't gotten an egg after like 10 attempts. Yeah, you can still get pretty unlucky, alright? And then that group, when they finally did get an egg, they stopped messaging me about it from Black Dragon, so that was the thing. But anyways, my point is that you can still get pretty unlucky, right? The eggs and a lot of other world boss drops are extremely freaking rare. So even if everybody does have 4 times as much loot drop because it's a double loot event and you all have all these crazy potions on or whatever, you can still get pretty unlucky because the actual drop rate for a lot of these items is pretty abysmally low, right? That said, did you know that the double loot drop and double honor and double vocation, all that stuff is not actually double. It actually just adds plus 100% to your values. So during double honor, you have plus 100% honor. And it's not going to tell you that in your stats because it's hidden in the game, right? So while you can have, the double loot drop event would theoretically give you plus 100% loot drop at all times, it won't show up here under your character. It just applies to the calculation. Similar to how War does. So War zones give like a plus 30 or plus 50% loot drop rate, and that's actually just added to the calculation, when something drops. So if we go back to the browser here, we have like a little calculation here where the item final drop chance is the base drop chance multiplied by the average group drop rate plus wartime loot drop bonus, right? So that's how this stuff works with pretty much anything. There's some other things, specific stuff here about how this was tested, and so you guys can also do it yourselves if you wanted to. It's actually really easy to test, honestly. It ended up being very, very simple. We're kind of surprised that nobody had done this in the first place, but there you go. So this is kind of all the facts and how this works with loot drop rate. I think that is it. Let's go on to the next thing. Oh, yay, staggers. I freaking love this one. It was my favorite thing. So, staggers are kind of crazy. They are actually a crowd control in this game that a lot of people don't even know about because it almost doesn't exist. And there are reasons for that that are just kind of silly, okay? Oh, man. This is a big topic. So, let's just start from in-game. In-game, you probably noticed that some abilities have stagger on them. For example, Overwhelm. It says right here as a part of the combo, it inflicts stagger for a second when used while under the effects of Bloodthirst. Pin Down says the same freaking thing. It inflicts stagger for 1 second when used under the effects of Bloodthirst. Guess what? This stagger, in both situations, is actually different, and they act in different ways. And this is across every freaking stagger in the game. They all act different. They all have different traits. They all have different names. Some of them don't show up in the combat log, and others do. So let's take a look at this freaking weird-ass list that me and Art finally put together at one point, because we really just wanted to document what the hell was going on with stagger. And this is one of the craziest lists we've ever made, where look at the freaking things on this list. Look at the differences between some of these. Look at this. Pin Down, right? Its stagger disables Defiance. You can't use Defiance during that 1 second of a pin down stagger, but you can use Defiance during the 1 second of an Overwhelm Stagger, and neither of them show up in the combat log. So you don't even know that the stagger happens. But guess what? This stagger from Shield Slam Quake does show up in the combat log, but the stagger from Shield Slam Normal does not show up in the combat log. So a different version of Shield Slam, and suddenly you don't even see it in the combat log. In fact, Shield Slam Normal doesn't even disable Defiance, but Shield Slam Quake does, and has Diminishing Returns, where all of these other staggers do not have Diminishing Returns. Lasso is so weird, man. Lasso Normal does do stagger. It even appears in the combat log, but doesn't tell you that it staggers them. I don't think that it does. Maybe it does in the description. But that stagger does disable Defiance and abilities, like every single stagger actually disables abilities, actually, except for Fending Arrow. Fending Arrow is a weird one, and so does Ghastly Pack, because it's technically a silence, and we go on to talk about it a little bit here, so you can kind of see that. But anyways, my point is that stagger is ridiculous. It is just all over the board. It has so many different kind of weird ways that it works. All of the Tiger Strike staggers... Well, wait, hold on. I think Tiger Strike stagger works a little differently. Let me take a look at that again really quick. Tiger Strike stagger... Oh, right. If the target is already under the effect of Overpowered, it'll just stagger that opponent. Okay, so most people don't ever get this off because multiple people don't Tiger Strike the same target. Okay, let's go back to this list then. So, yeah, stagger's kind of a weird thing, and stagger's actually really, really important because guess what it does? It disables abilities, so like for an entire second it will just stop somebody from being able to cast anything or use anything. It stops channels, it stops cast times. It actually doesn't stop every channel, like Absorb Life Force, for example, that's technically an ongoing channel, but it doesn't actually stop Absorb Life Force, it'll just keep going in the background, right? So that's a weird scenario there. But anyways, so Stagger does all those things with disabling abilities. In some cases, it disables Defiance, and on top of that, in all of these cases, it roots the target. It makes it so the target cannot move, okay? So it's kind of like a snare, it's kind of like a disable, it's kind of like a crowd control. In a lot of these cases, there's no diminishing returns, and a lot of them they show up in the combat log, and others they don't. Look, Dehuda's Breath is technically a stagger, but it doesn't even show up as a stagger in the name because in the combat log it's just called Dehuda's Breath, right? So you don't even know that it's a stagger, but it turns out it's the exact same thing. So this is the craziest, weirdest thing in the game that we're not really... Like, I don't know why it ended up being this way. But that's what stagger is. Look, this stagger looks like a stagger as a debuff icon, and yet doesn't... Like, in the combat log, it shows root. But if you hover over the actual debuff icon, it says stagger. Look at this, pin down and overwhelm stagger does not even show up as a debuff under your character. So you don't even know what the hell it is. Like, you just stop, right? Somebody overwhelms you out of stealth, and you just stop, and you have no idea what happened. And you will never know, period, unless you realize that overwhelm caused a stagger. So that is, like, an actual thing. Like, this is how ridiculously confusing the game tends to be around stagger. And exactly like you said, Andromeda, people just forget about stagger. And yet, look at me. I'm so happy with this build, because every time I play... oh gosh, that's not the build that I'm playing right now. I'm playing Immortalist, right? Because I'm playing Immortalist because it's funny and silly, but over the last few weeks I've realized Immortalist is actually ridiculous because I don't have Battle Rage, but I can still use Bloodthirst into Overwhelm to snare a target, because Overwhelm technically snares and stops them from doing anything. And then I go into Pin Down, which also staggers and stops Defiance, and silences the target if they're under poison. So I've been able to start playing around staggers like crazy, and it is so much fun. Like, it's actually really, really enjoyable. Once you totally understand what stagger does, how it works, the timings of it, and so on. Which is not easy to do, right? There's so much to it. So this list is actually one of the most crazy things in the game, right? Especially because it disables the ability to use Defiance in some cases. Yeah, you're right. These are actually very, very small durations, but they are not reduced by anything, right? So if you're staggered and you have Cloth on, you're still going to get staggered for a whole second, right? If you're staggered and you have some bonuses from some set effects or from defense or something else, you're not going to be able to get out of stagger, period. Like, Auromance is not going to help you with that, defense is not going to help you with that, and you cannot reduce the duration of these staggers. But you're right, in a lot of these there's a 0.3 duration amount. But the big deal with this is that because it roots you, and even if it roots you for just like a little blip of time, that is still an extremely important time that you can use to follow up with other abilities. For example, you can stagger somebody and use Throw Hammer as a melee, and that is pretty much guaranteed to work because just like it would with a snare, you're essentially doing the same thing with a stagger, right? You're kind of following up, you're forcing the server to be like, stop that guy. Okay, now I'm going to use an ability that looks at where you are and shoots you, and it takes some time to get there. But you can guarantee that it's going to work, right? And yeah, you're right. In some cases, the target might not be there anymore, right? Because you use Overwhelm on somebody, and they're running, and it'll snare them, but it'll snare them, and on your screen, that'll already be like, a few more meters away from you, so you still have to get closer to them. So there's a little bit of glitchiness in the way that it works, right? Like you said, it's if this was a fighting game, there'd be very different in the way that this would actually work. But still, it exists, right? And it's something that people can take advantage of actually pretty frequently. Like look how many different skills have it. Even Boneyard has Stagger. Boneyard, which actually disables Defiance for an extremely, obviously, small period of time, but and goes on cooldown, by the way. There's actually diminishing returns to the Stagger, which is really, really weird. But yeah, so this, even Boneyard, you're able to kind of use it. The big thing with Stagger is that because it's disabling abilities, because it causes root, and more importantly, because it stops casting, you can actually stop somebody from, like, using Meteor, for example, or you can stop somebody from casting Battle Hymn, or you can stop somebody from casting something else from range in many cases, and that's where the value from Stagger comes in, is because there's so many different utilities for why you might want to use Stagger in certain situations. That's why this is so cool. It's a very versatile CC that does so many different things. Anything else you want to talk about this topic? We kind of talked about Ghastly Pact before and how its silence is a little bit different. If somebody is casting Meteor, they already have you locked down. No way. I've stopped people so many times with just all sorts of different things. I look for people who are trying to cast Meteor and such, and I do stop it very frequently. But yeah, it's just an extra thing, right? Like if stun is on immunity, you can still technically stop somebody, right? If your opponent has immunity to trip, you can still do something against them to cause them to stop and not be able to do anything for a second. Because there's no diminishing returns to Stagger. So just think about it. Think about this, mess around with it. Maybe you can make it work in your builds, maybe not. I'm definitely making it work with Immortalist. Immortalist is like all about it. It's crazy, and I really, really enjoy this kind of gameplay. It's very, very wildly different from the way that I would normally think about stuff. And I like that. I really do enjoy that sort of thing. Alright, let's move on to the next thing here. How much time do we have? We are 2 hours into the stream almost. Oh, we're good, actually. Alright. Weapon damage type. This is a big deal. The enhance system that everybody has been asking questions about lately. And so just to put a little bit of an understanding to what weapon damage type and enhance is in the first place. Oh, let me read this first. Relevant to the previous topic. Casting in general isn't as useful since everybody shifted over to instant cast spells. The only real significant one people picking up was Arc. And that'll be even like tougher with the new stat system, right? Because people will have a little bit more cast time reduction from intelligence or spirit in the way that works. And two-handed weapons are actually going to be even more bolstered, so people will have even less cast time because of two-handed weapons. So yeah, there's a lot of different things and sort of gameplay routes that people can take that are cast time focused that won't feel like they're very long cast times, which is kind of cool. But we just have to see how the meta changes over time, I guess. I'm very excited for those changes. We'll have to see what happens. Alright, so let's talk about the enhanced system and weapon damage type. So let me go in game here. Alright, so weapon damage type is essentially all of these things, like what the weapons themselves do. Like it's a damage type associated with each weapon, and it does include healing, mages with magic, and ranged technically because bows also have one. And so like bows have piercing, daggers of slashing, axes of crushing, mages on their weapons with a staff and scepter. They have one called blasting. Bludgeoning is the healing one for clubs and great clubs. And so this is the damage type system. And the idea here is you can kind of hover over these icons, and they'll tell you that, hey, if you're doing piercing attacks against somebody in cloth, you're going to get a greater amount of additional damage bonus, and also a low amount of additional damage bonus against somebody in plate. In some cases, you can actually see arrows appear over something. So when you use an ability on something, you see these damage floaty numbers. If you have a high enough damage type bonus, you'll actually see arrows appear. And I believe a high enough damage bonus is something around 5% or over. So this is actually replacing the old damage bonus system. You guys remember that old damage bonus system? Like, you can hover over leather, and it'll say now, because finally I told them about this, and they finally changed the description, but this used to say, damage from slashing does 15% more damage sometimes against leather, right? Now it's replaced with takes a great amount of damage from slashing weapons. I wish they just got rid of it completely, because it's not totally correct, and it doesn't give you numbers, and it's really wacky and annoying. So this isn't, I don't like the way they did this. But the idea here is that the old system is gone, so no more 15% extra damage. The enhanced damage type system, the whole enhanced system is actually to get those bonuses in the first place. So a level 0 enhanced bonus, which is essentially in every weapon, right? Every weapon has a level 0 of something. So like my dagger has a level 0 of slashing. It'll start at a 5% damage bonus against whatever is high. So slashing is good against leather. So I technically will have a 5% damage bonus against somebody in leather. Just as base, just from level 0. And in high values, like against something that's high value, each increased level in the enhanced system, so level 1 to level 10, will give me 1% more damage against somebody who has a, against the leather type that it's high against. Low is like an extremely abysmally low amount, and medium is even, is between those two. And we talk about it a little bit in this forum, in this Reddit post, I should say. So we talk about exactly what the old system was and that it's gone. We talk about this works actually in any equipment, because any equipment has level 0 on something. We talk about how armor affects this, because all that armor does is it just reduces the amount of damage bonus that somebody else is doing to you. So if you have leather, so let's say I'm attacking somebody with leather and I have level 0 slashing, right? So I do 5% more damage against somebody in leather. But if that leather player has enhanced bonuses for their armor, my 5% gets reduced down by 0.5% for every level they have for something, so all the way down to 0, right? So if they have level 1 in one of their chest pieces, instead of doing 5% damage, I'm actually doing 4.5% damage. And at that point, you probably won't even see the up arrows appear next to the combat, the numbers that appear in combat, because it's already below a certain threshold of when they're supposed to show you these up arrows next to the up arrow symbols next to actual attacks. Or healing. Healing gets it as well, too. So it's a very, very weird and complicated system. The whole point of the system is to try to convince you to spend more labor and experience and time investing into it, because it gives you more gear score too, but the actual value is so small, and the cost in many cases is so high. This is something you probably want to invest into way down the road, like after you have everything else up to Eternal. Then maybe you want to invest some time into this to get some extra boosts in damage, right? Once you've gotten everything else out of the way, for the most part. Because in many cases it's an expensive system with very, very low gain, and only against certain armor types anyways, right? It's weird. It's a very weird system, but literally Excel seemed to have done it and hid all this information from us, specifically because they're just trying to get you to do it, because they just want you to spend your gold on something, right? It's a gold sink. They just want you to sink your gold into a bunch of things for little tiny baby damage bonuses, right? And so this article talks quite a bit about that. It talks about what low, medium, high mean. It shows that like low gave about less than 1% bonus to damage against those armor types. Medium gave about 2 to 4%. This is all at level 0. High gave about a 5 to 6% damage bonus against those armor types. So that's the high amount, right? And at level 0 again. When we did it at level 15 or at level 10 enhances, we started to understand what exactly the bonus was, because we could start to calculate what the increases were. And so as we increased a high weapon, level by level, we started to see about a 1% increase in damage bonus every single time. When we did it against a low amount, a low value of something, or against a low armor type, we saw like a 0.2% damage bonus against the low type. It was a very, very small, very small amount. It's just very, very low. And so we talk about all these things in this article. I do have a too long don't read about this. I mean, I still I wrote this a long time ago, but I still go by this. don't pay too much attention to the system. All right. If you don't want to read, I made a highlight during a stream where I talked about it. So there you go. There's another thing as well. But anyways, my point is that it's a system for the end game. It's just for people to do something to do in the end game. If you got everything else done, you can go and get little tiny bonuses against certain armor types, and that's pretty much it. That's kind of the way that it works, right? Let me look over this very quickly to see if there's anything else that I missed. I don't think so. Yeah, all this stuff was tested on PTS. We were able to get like actual weapons and stuff to test it, so it's pretty cool. Thankfully, we were able to look into these things. There's no way that Korea would have been able to test it, and honestly, it's almost impossible to test on the live servers just because of the way that this works and the way that this stuff is calculated. So the PTS was really the only way we could really hammer down what exactly this stuff was, and I don't think we're going to get very much of a chance to do that again. Right, because PTS goes up and down only when they need it, right? So, it's cool stuff, but pretty abysmally small. Don't worry too much about the enhanced system. If you want to get into the enhanced system, the way that it works is you need to have a tier 5 Haram weapon, a tier 3 library weapon, or armor, by the way, or armor. Armor is also part of this. Or a tier 3 Aranor weapon or armor, right? So it has to be the highest tiers of stuff. And then you can go here to the enhanced system and you can use XP from your actual equipment. You can literally use XP that you've synthesized into it and some cost with gold and labor to get it to level 1, for example, right? Now, you see here it says max grade is level 4. That's because it's only mythic. So there's some grade limitations of how high you can get something. When I get this to Eternal, I can go up to level 10. So there's a little bit of boundaries on how much you can take advantage of that system before you actually can. By the way, if I did this right now, it would go right back down to Legendary, because I don't have the XP at the moment, but it will still actually eat it. So it would just go right back down to Legendary. It's just really weird. So don't do that. Don't accidentally take advantage of this and then lose a bunch of XP, and then then you have to get back up to Mythic again. So keep that in mind as well. Oh, you guys didn't see that. Sorry, I just wanted to show this off. This UI. So here you go. So yeah, slashing here has... see how it will eat a whole bunch of XP? Because I don't have any XP. It'll just go right back down to a lower grade. Literally to Legendary. But, costs 500 gold, costs 550 labor, and there's a max grade right now of 4 for this dagger just because it is mythic and not eternal, right? It's not actually at the fully end game when people would generally take advantage of the system. Oh, you can't click the button right now? Does it not let you? Oh yeah, you're right. It actually does need the synthesis. Oh, that's funny. Somebody else was able to do this, though, and they were actually able to get it down to Legendary. That's weird. Because we've seen that happen, actually, once. Maybe it was, bugged or something. Maybe there's a way to bug this. That's really weird. Or maybe it was, maybe they fixed that bug at some point. Huh. Oh, well. Cool. Great. So they prevent people from doing that. Amazing. You don't even have to worry about that, then. You're all set. Thanks for clearing that up, Skull. Alright, let's move on. I think we've pretty much covered everything with the enhanced system. Let's move on to the next thing here. Put the browser back. Yeah, man. Oh, God. AoE damage, Falloff, and target prioritization. It's such a big deal. Okay. This is why you cannot AoE kill everybody in the universe in one hit, because, again, XL has given us speed limits for what we're allowed to do. I also heard a little story that a long time ago, back in the alpha days, somebody found a way to hack Archeage and would kill every single mob on the map with one ability, because they were able to just hack it and do that. And so XL said, no, we don't want that to happen. So we will limit AoE damage and give it an actual fall-off on how stuff is affected by it. So it's a little weird. I don't know if that story is true or not, because it doesn't really affect these numbers, but anyway, somebody told me that once, and I decided to pass it on here to you guys. I don't know if it's true. But AoE damage fall-off is essentially if you are doing some kind of AoE attack, area of effect attack, and it hits multiple targets, the more targets it hits, each additional target it hits takes less damage than the previous target. Okay? Actually very simple. If there's 2 targets standing next to each other and you use Meteor, one target is going to take 100% of the damage, and the other target is going to take 95% of the damage. And if you keep adding more people into it, you get this graph, with a hard limit at 10 targets. So at 10 targets, everybody else at that point is just going to take 50%. It actually drops down from 60 at the 9th target to 50 on the 10th target. Otherwise, it's just it's a 5% loss for each additional target up to that point, okay? This is why if you run into a giant group of people at Aegis Isle or in Whale Song, and you just plop down a meteor, you'll kill maybe 3 people, but then the rest are all okay because they're just not taking as much damage, right? Now, this is where we also talk about target prioritization, because, once again, and we've talked about this already earlier in the stream, but what exactly is target prioritization is pretty much asking the question of who does the game decide, you know, who's the 100% versus who's the 50%, right? And the answer is, it just depends on who loaded into your game client first. So, if you're running into a group of people, and person A and B load before person C and D, A and B are going to get hit by AoEs before C and D do if the limit of something is 2, right? If the limit of something that would only hit 2 targets, and all of them are clumped together, you're going to hit the first 2 people that have loaded into your personal game client before you hit the people who have loaded later on, okay? And this goes back to the whole Hellspear thing. Hellspear affects 8 targets, but if there's 9 people standing together, who is it going to hit? It's going to hit the first 8 people out of those targets that have loaded into your personal game client first. Now, this is again the same thing for the damage falloff. So again, the people who are getting hit more with higher values here by an AoE attack are the people who have loaded into your game client first. And the people who are getting hit by the 50% down here, if it's a giant clump of people, are the people who loaded into your game client last. Now, people get loaded into your game client by distance. So when you get up to a certain distance away from somebody, your client, your personal local client, will say, hey, there's a person there. You've just reached the limit of where they are, where the server tells you they are. Let me load it into your game client. And then as you keep running in that direction, it'll keep doing that same calculation for additional targets, right? And of course, your game client will also only visibly show you maybe 50 to 100 actual people and their models and their textures. But it still knows about other people that are around you, so you could still use non-targeted AoEs to hit other people. But the same thing applies, is that, again, target prioritization is based on who loaded into your game client first. It doesn't necessarily have to be actual, like, they don't have to be rendered necessarily, but that's just how all this stuff is calculated. So I think that is pretty much it for AoE damage falloff and target prioritization. It's a really easy thing to understand. It's just, again, this kind of stuff was kind of known by people, it's kind of not. When I first brought this up, a lot of people down here in the comments were like, oh, that's why I can't do that thing I do, right? And it's kind of like there's a bunch of comments here. There was kind of like an aha moment for a lot of folks who do a lot of AoE damage but don't see results. Crashing Waves is a great example of this, because it is an AoE attack, and it'll hit the people, like anybody in that line who loaded in first is going to take more damage than, you know, the people who in that line loaded in later. So, and so you kind of start to see that with those sort of abilities. Now, there's a lot of talk about and a lot of discussion about this in this Reddit post, and I don't want to go into it right now. I don't even know if I can load. Oh, I can. There's a lot of discussion in here, because there's some things you can do to take advantage of this. Let's say you're a healer, and you don't want to die very often, right? You're a healer, you don't want to die. So you could go into battle a little later. You can go into battle about half a second later, just right behind your tanks, or right behind your DPS. You can all be very, very much clumped up together. But, you know, instead of you guys... let's take this picture away. And then let me show you guys paint. Instead of, like, let's say you got all your friends here. How do I do this? Let me, Alright, you got a bunch of friends. Oh, gosh, that's not a good idea. Let's use a brush. Alright, you got a bunch of friends here, okay? Everybody's running into a fight, okay? Your initiators are out front. Instead of your healers being here, okay, just be right over here, right? Just be a little bit behind everybody. Because since you're loading in later, if an AoE hits you, it's going to first hit these guys and do more damage to them, and then it's going to do a little bit of damage to you, right? Or if you're clumped up later and somebody uses Hellspear, let's say somebody runs into your group and they're right here, and they use Hellspear, and Hellspear affects this circle, right? Well, their Hellspear is going to hit 8 targets, so it's going to hit, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, and your healers are fine, because they're back here, right? Because they loaded in later, and so the Hell Spear actually didn't hit them. So there are ways to take advantage of this. There are ways to screw up taking advantage of this. Like if you're running into a battle and as a healer you're way behind your allies, you're not there to help heal people, right? And so now you're actually at a disadvantage because you came into the battle just period late, and you're not actually able to, help heal your initiators and keep people alive. That's a problem, right? But there are still ways to take advantage of this in a positive way, but again, it requires a lot of endgame understanding of where you need to be and how you can do, how you can actually min-max usefulness here with target prioritization. A little bit complicated, but a very, very interesting thing that once again kind of reinforces the idea that positioning is very, very important in combat, not just because of height damage bonuses and clumping up together, or just even having pets and mounts out all the time, which some other people say that is not a good thing because it can distract your allies or it can distract anybody, right? There's a lot of issues here with just having pets and mounts out versus, you can use pets and mounts to actually soak up damage because of, again, AoE damage fall-off, right? So we had a lot of conversations in that Reddit thread, and there's no real perfect way to play. But the fact that this stuff exists is very interesting, and it still makes you have to kind of think about your own positioning, not only just during a fight, but before a fight even occurs. Drink some water here. Alright, cool. So before a fight even occurs, even at that point, your positioning actually matters, because as you load into the enemy's game client, you could actually be better protected from AoE skills, right? So, it's crazy. This stuff and everything is so absolutely crazy. Now, this stuff we actually figured out over the years, to be fair. We learned this around 4.5 and even earlier than that. This has been around in the game forever, so a lot of people have figured this out over time. But again, I wanted to make a big post going over it. I wanted to do real testing. I wanted to plot everything out on a chart, and we started to see these patterns with the actual damages that we got with all these different abilities, and even more so that aren't listed here. And another thing to kind of talk about with this that I haven't mentioned yet is that this also affects buffs and debuffs. Right, debuffs we've talked about, but buffs as well. Health Lift has a maximum target cap of 20. So when you use Health Lift from Aromancy, it'll hit 20 people. And the people that it hits are the first 20 people that loaded into your game. And if you use Mend hits 10 people. And if you use Mend twice, you're not healing people based on their health. You're healing people based on when they loaded into your game client. So if you're trying really, really hard to heal somebody with an AoE that is at low health, and they're standing next to a bunch of other people that loaded into your game client first, you're not healing the person at low health, because the game doesn't think you should. Like, you have no way. You have to somehow isolate them, make them go somewhere else, so that you can actually heal them with AoE, because otherwise it'll just choose people who are loaded into your game client first, right? And yes, that's true. Wait, hold on. I actually don't... Can we not turn on the AC right now? Please? Okay, I can turn on Crisp, I guess. Just because you guys can hear the AC in the background quite a bit. So, alright, I turn on Crisp, we can turn on the AC. Alright, I'll go back to this. So Mend is a little different, you're right. Mend will first heal the people in your party. Yep, that's true. Mend is a bad example. A better example would be like Life Skewer, I believe, and whatever. Let's say the people in your party aren't near you for Mend, right? Let's say that all your people in your party are somewhere else, right? Then this sort of stuff still applies, right? But yes, you're right. Mend still goes to the first, to your party first. Yep. It's kind of why I like the whole split up your healers into different parties in a raid. So like in a raid of 50 people, split up your healers so there's one healer per party, because you get a little bit of better coverage of just, healers actually healing other people, or mixing up healers to be in parties with initiators, since you want your initiators to get that healing first, right? Those are all kind of very important aspects that a lot of people kind of don't think very much about when it comes to making raid frames, but actually kind of important, and I think people just got used to the way that raid frames should look, right, in combat, and I think people are just like used to having all the healers in two parties. And I guess that's good if you want your healers to keep each other alive, which is kind of nice, at least with Mend. But, not always the best thing for other situations. So it just depends on like what kind of actual combat you're doing. Sometimes in PvE, you want it to be a different raid setup than PvP, for example. But yeah, so the whole point of this conversation is there's a lot of stuff here, right? And you can take advantage of it however you want. But it is a lot to go. It's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to kind of think, and hopefully it gives you some better idea about positioning as well in combat, right? Any kind of combat, PvE or PvP. Mix this in with the whole height damage bonus, and you've got a whole bunch of stuff coming at you. Right? Positioning is super, super important. There's this. So this is some ongoing stuff that Azan, or Azan, I don't remember how he likes his name pronounced. And he's going to probably kill me for that. And Kairos of Wind, so the server that I'm on. This is stuff that I've actually done really, really far in the past as well. It's some research about boat and ship stats, especially around machining. Now, I think their plan is to actually make all the stuff very formal and actually put out a Reddit post themselves, because they're doing some other research too about how speeds work with weight exactly, how different figureheads affect things, because they found some bugs there that they're going to be reporting on. And there's a whole slew of things that they really started to really identify, like how much of an angle, like every angle, like north to south, right, like the directional angle, how much each single degree affects the maximum speed on a boat, and those kind of things. So they're doing a ton of research there. The stuff that I've done research on myself, I'll go ahead and I've listed here. But I'm not going to publish their research because they're still doing it and they're doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? So from what we did is machining helps repair boats better, but it works in a different way than people understand. The way that it works is actually the owner of the boat and their stats affect the entire boat itself. So if the owner of the boat has very high machining, then any other player, regardless of their own machining level, will be able to heal the boats for higher values. Every 10k proficiency in machining provides a 225 base heal. And the owner's healing percentage output and the owner's healing critical rate and healing critical bonus are accounted as well. So if a healer with very high machining owns a boat and anybody repairs that boat, it'll probably crit and do 200 to 300% more healing on top of the machining bonus for the base heal amount. So it's a little bit weird to say have your healers own the boats, because you technically don't want that, right? You want your healers actually healing, not owning boats and driving boats around. But it is still an interesting thing, because somebody maybe you're a melee or maybe you're a tank or somebody, you might actually have a set of armor that you use just and like weapons that you use just for driving a boat. That's actually a possibility. It's something that you can do. You can have an offset for boat driving, and a part of your offset would probably be Dawn's Drop for the extra machining, right? Where's my Dawn's Drop? There we go. 20,000 machining, right? You'd have that. And then maybe you'd have a whole bunch of stuff for some extra crit rate and crit damage bonus, or crit heal rate and crit heal bonus. You could actually do that and make a set just for like driving a boat. It's kind of weird, but this stuff exists in the game. It actually works that way when it comes down to repairing a boat. And again, Azan and Kairos were doing a lot of different stuff with boats. They're going to be putting out that information on Reddit at some point once they've really kind of nailed everything down. I hope they do anyways. Otherwise, I'm going to find it and I'm going to put it out there because it's really, really cool stuff. But I don't want to step over their feet when it comes to the research that they've put out there for players. So I'll let them figure those things out and give it to you guys. So yeah, there's some little bit of hidden information about how machining and other things affect repairing on boats. So this, I think, covers this list of information. There's like an interesting note down here, actually. Fun fact. If you destroy the fortress in Diamond Shores, right? The big fortress, the Alamine fortress in Diamond Shores, but you don't pick up the sword for 1 hour, the fortress respawns. Right? The other faction can't actually pick up your sword, number one. And number two, it doesn't like block off the picking up the sword for like 3 days or anything. You can't just deny the opposing faction the ability to do Diamond Shore stuff. It's just that the fortress just respawns and then somebody else can do it later, right? So you can't do that. You can't really deny your opponent faction the Diamond Shore's fortress stuff. I also have other things documented like Warborn transformation abilities and passives, Dwarf transformation abilities and passives, just in case you were wondering about how those work and kind of like specific things with them. They're actually really, really good. Honestly, like, this is some crazy stuff. If you don't know, the Warborn can actually use this transformation to essentially stay invincible for like 15 seconds or so, during which they are literally invincible, but they can still use other abilities. But it's the abilities that are actually quite good. For example, they have the ability to cause bleeding on different targets. They have the ability to cause shaken on different targets. They have the ability to, I believe they can charge to a target within 40 meters every like 8 seconds. They can literally fly to people constantly, every 10 seconds, there it is. Like, it's crazy. You can actually do some crazy things just to like knock people off gliders and stuff as a Warborn. The Dwarves have a very similar sort of set of abilities. Dwarves, well, not like similar in that sense, but they have some crazy things they can do too. For example, a Dwarf in transformation mode can give massive amounts of buffs to your entire team. Buffs that give movement speed, buffs that gives damage reduction, like literally 20% damage reduction to everybody around you, which is kind of nice, right? For an extended period of time too. It's this one right here. I don't know the exact specifics for how this works. But yeah, so there's a lot of things that the Dwarves can also do to help benefit. And honestly, people don't really use transformation as much as they should, because there are things in here that you can literally micromanage transformations. So like at the beginning of the fight, you do a couple things in your transformation, and then you just take transformation off by yourself, right? You don't wait until you die or anything. You don't wait until somebody's killing your Warborn completely. But you literally micromanage a transformation to do 1 or 2 things in a fight, and then you just go right back to normal, and then you continue fighting like normal, right? People don't do that enough, and it's kind of unfortunate. But there's so many things here. There's so much debuffs and combos you can do with these transformations that I think are very, very much underestimated. As a part of this link directory, we have a lot of lore stuff as well, if that's something that interests you. Honestly, lore in this game is insane because it's based off of actual novels written by a semi-famous Korean author. So Archeage itself, the whole story of it is actually based off of a novel called The Fur and the Hawk. Not translated into English, though. And so there's a ton of resources for lore in this game. There's so many backgrounds and different characters and such. We had our own first background lore stream that we did, like lore about background of the game and such, just a few weeks ago when they announced the community design costume contest thing. And so I put out like a big 45-minute video. We streamed it actually, talking about the Akash and lore in general, so that was kind of fun. I actually really did enjoy doing that, and people really liked that video, which is very cool. So we might do some more lore stuff later on. And so yeah, so that's all this in the link directory. Now, I want to talk about some other things too, because there's a lot of different secrets in this game that are not really well documented, and one of them is like what we talked about earlier, the UBA components, which is this thing. So there's like tons of secret quests in this game. There's tons of secret like items, secret titles, secret achievements, and items you can like earn and use as weapon swaps all over the place. Like, a lot of people don't even know that you can get honor weapons from a weapon shop. And all these honor weapons are just like weapon swaps that give you extra buffs or do extra things. And I try to use them as much as I can. Actually, a very fun one that I've started using recently is the Honor Staff. Because the Honor Staff is actually just the old Enervate. So I can actually, from 20 meters away, use the Honor Staff to Enervate a target from really far away. And this is just a scarecrow, so you won't see the debuff. But there's actually a lot of things that happen with the honor, all these honor equipments that are really, really underutilized. So that's something as well, right? But there's a ton of hidden things in this game, like the rocket boots, right? These rocket boots that I can activate myself and then just get a bit of a leap into the air. In fact, I actually use that to get on top of boats because the height of the rocket boots is like perfect to get on top of a boat. And so I do that all the time just to look badass, right? Since you can't switch armor in combat, I try to do that out of combat whenever I need to. There's like so many other things in this game too. There's like the library weapons themselves have all these active abilities on them, which you could just swap to, use, and then swap back to your main weapons. For example, the Disciple Staff is amazing. It petrifies any target that's looking at you, that's in front of you, and you can even see on the ground the lines of the radius of what you're actually hitting in front of you, and it works up to 25 meters away. So I use this to stop people from getting on our boat while we're escaping. I use this to stop initiators on the enemy team from doing anything, because I literally just petrify them for the entire duration of the staff. However, I micromanage it too, so I use the staff and I look away on purpose so that those targets are not CC'd anymore, because our team is now all over them, right? So I'm essentially using the staff to manipulate the battlefield the way that I want it to. This is just one thing in the game. There are so many different abilities with different actives and like combos and things that you can do. And this is something that is very undervalued in the game as well, and people don't really understand this stuff because this isn't something that you get in other games, right? This isn't a normal thing. This is something very akin to the way that Archeage works, and Archeage has these things in it and has all these little toys and active abilities you can swap to, and it encourages players to use them. And so a lot of people don't even know that they exist, like the honor weapons, like the library weapons, like all the dungeon weapons. There's so many different dungeon weapons you can get and upgrade that do so many cool and interesting things players just don't even know about. My offhand swap here that I've started finally using, I have an actual hotkey to swap my weapons, and so I store on my offhand, on my what is this called? On my weapon swap, right? Here I have a Radiance Disciple Shield, so I can actually use that from 20 meters away to pull a bunch of targets together, which is really, really cool. But more importantly is I also have a Searing Oath there. So if I think I'm about to take a bunch of burst damage, this Searing Oath reduces, while I have it on, it increases my received damage reduction by 3%, and I put a little bit of magic defense on it, and my shield has a bunch of max health. And so I actually weapon swap like this, just if I'm about to take a bunch of burst damage, or if I just need to use the shield to help pull a bunch of people together. So there's a lot of different things you can do in this game with just weapon swapping alone that are really, really undervalued by its player, right? By the Archeage player base. And so hopefully this helps give some ideas. If you're looking for this sort of information or for some cool weapon swaps, you have the entire item encyclopedia right here. So you can see pretty much every weapon in the game here and what they do, and sort of like, start to look for things in different places, right? All these different cool things that exist in the game. Of course, another resource is the Archeage Codex. You can go to the Codex online. Just search Archeage Codex on the internet, Google, and you'll find it. And that has a list of all the like everything. You can search anything in the game. You can look up all sorts of different items. You can actually search buffs and debuffs as well. If you saw something that happened really quickly in the game and you're like, oh crap, I caught the name but not the description, you can actually go to the Archeage Codex and look up that buff or debuff and actually read more about it and see the item, the actual idea of the buff, and start to sort of understand more about it from that perspective too. So there's a lot of resources in this game that a lot of players just don't know about. And doing research, searching for things, exploring, there's all this stuff that is open to the player base to learn more, and a lot of people just don't take advantage of it, which sucks, right? Because there's actually so many different things that Archeage offers, but a lot of players just don't really get involved in that because it doesn't really make it obvious, right? The game doesn't make it obvious that all this stuff exists. You have to figure it out on your own. But the game is more fun when you know these things, and that's kind of why I reveal these secrets. That's why I talk about these things, because when you know these things, when you understand height damage bonus, when you understand AoE damage falloff and target prioritization, when you understand how provoke works in different pets, when you understand how all these things can mix together with weapon swaps and gliders, and using gliders and different abilities to hit people and do stuff and catch up to people with the Eagle Glider, which is crazy, right? When you mix all these different gameplay elements together, you start to craft your character at that point. You start to craft the capabilities that you can do in PvP and PvE. And it becomes way, way more fun at that point. Especially when you include all the different skill sets, all the different combos you can do. A really good example is that there are weapon swaps in this game that can cause debuffs that you can combo with. For example, the Disciple's Bow, the library bow that you can get from the library drops, right? That actually has a 25-meter bleeding effect. Which means if you don't have Shadowplay, but you still want to do bleeding on people because you can maybe take advantage of it because of combos from Battle Rage or Swiftblade for extra damage, you don't even need Shadowplay to cause bleeding. You just need to weapon swap the bow swap to this library bow. Where is it here? The Disciple's Bow. Oh, it's a 20-meter radius when it's just tier 1 library. I think it gets higher for every additional tier. Yeah, 25 meters at tier 2, and probably 30 meters at tier 3. 28 meters at tier 3, yeah. So from range, you can actually swap to this bow, cause bleeding in somebody that lasts like 14 seconds, and then swap back to your regular bow before you even get into the combat. And now, when you attack that person with abilities, you actually can take advantage of bleeding combos, right? And do a little bit more damage to them with something like Precision Strike, or Relentless Assault from Swiftblade, or Crescent Slice. And you can take advantage of that. So these are just weapon swaps that exist in the game that players don't really know about, right? That actually cause debuffs that are very, very important, like Enervate, right? Now, Enervate on this Honor Staff is the old version, so it actually is only a 50% reduction in healing effectiveness, and it only lasts 5 seconds too. But it still increases the duration of stun and trip on the target by 30%. So you could actually use this from a 20-meter range before you get into a fight, swap back to your regular equipment, and then trip somebody, and they'll be tripped for much longer, right? Or use this from range on a healer, and they will be much less effective at healing. So there are still ways to take advantage of a lot of these things. But it does, all of this stuff together requires so much practice and so much effort to make it work. But you'll actually feel the gameplay possibilities when you do look into this stuff and you start to, sort of mess around with it. It is really, really fun. This is really why I like Archeage so much, is because it has all of this stuff available to you. Everything just locked in together that you can use to sort of just mess around with the game. And even vehicles can play a big role here, right? You can summon a siege tank and just stand on it, and then you'll do extra damage bonus just from standing on a siege tank, right? Because your height bonus is better than the other player's height, and so you're taking advantage of height bonus just by standing on top of something, even if like the entire battleground is completely flat. A really funny one that I enjoy is where is it? Where's my longboard? I believe my longboard is in here. So here's kind of a funny one that I learned a long time ago that's kind of silly, but I don't know, maybe there's some use for it, so I'll just show it off. So the longboard can jump into the air and do cool tricks, right? But if you jump into the air and get off, which is really hard to do because you actually can't be moving. Come on. No, come on, do this one time. And this used to work actually more often. Essentially, if you get off your longboard in midair... Oh, actually, what am I doing? There's a much easier way to do it. Hold on. Let me just go over here. Alright. Yay! So I just used an ability to get off my longboard, and now my longboard is just in midair. And that's it. And I can go and stand on top of that. And then shoot down at people if I wanted to, for the little bit of silly extra damage bonus, right? But this is a thing. Like, this actually exists in the game. It's just a silly thing, but, whatever, right? It's not... Somebody might actually find a use for this silliness, right? I don't think there's anything too crazy with that, but still, right? It's just, the little things in this game are pretty cool. And the game just throws everything at you to just kind of mess around with. And it's just kind of up to you to learn this stuff and use it yourself. So, I think that was actually the last topic that I wanted to go over. And I think we covered just about everything that I could think of. Now, there's still so many things we don't really know. There's a lot with this game that we're still trying to figure out. Like a lot of the stuff with how boats exactly work. There's a lot of stuff with how debuffs. Some debuffs can miss even though they're like magic and you have magic because they're not counted as magic. There's so many little minuscule things in this game that we don't actually totally understand quite yet, which is still awesome because that's kind of the cool part about Archeage. People have to kind of learn this stuff, right? So if something ever feels off, make sure to actually go and research what's going on. Look in your combat log. Make a combat log. If you don't have a combat log at all, I put out a video on YouTube explaining how to make this, because it's extremely, extremely useful to see what happened in certain situations in combat. And so I actually have 3 combat logs for different situations that I can look into and use for different purposes. And I talk about that in the YouTube video, so I'm not going to go into it too much right now. But yeah, so there's so many things in this game that are hidden to players. A lot of them are still able to be sort of discovered by things like the combat log and such, but hopefully this entire stream has been at least somewhat helpful to you guys. I don't think there's too much else I want to talk about personally. If there's any other cool things you guys have run across, now is a really good time to just have a conversation about that stuff. But I think for the most part, we've pretty much covered anything that I wanted to talk about. I did want to reiterate one thing about the height damage bonus. And that is... So let's say that... You know, we're going to bring up this picture again, where there's a, this is simply the height damage bonus, and there's somebody standing up here, right? And there's somebody down here. Okay, apparently that person is one leg. We're just going to go with it. The way that this height damage is actually calculated isn't just by this, right? It is technically just looking at this difference. Yes, the actual elevation difference between the two. But it's based on the character's lowest height. This is why dwarves are not like super underpowered and Warborn are not super overpowered because they're taller and dwarves are shorter. But actually, if you're measuring the difference between two players, it's looking at the lowest height of both players and saying, okay, this person's position is here, and this person's position is here. And that is where the calculation starts from. That is where this graph comes in, and it says, okay, the difference is this number, and that is the amount of damage bonus you get for each calculation at that time, okay? So if a dwarf jumps, their height is still going to be higher. It's just going to be just as high as anybody else that jumps. It doesn't matter what like what race you're playing. It's always going to be the same thing because it only just depends on the lowest actual location of your player at that time. And everybody's heights are always going to be the same in terms of like actual distance and such. So they've actually balanced it based on races. All right, I'm glad I went through that because I totally forgot about that. Totally forgot to mention that earlier too. I did actually mention it in the Reddit post though, so I made sure to clarify how that exactly works with different races. All right, we did it. I think we actually did go through everything that I wanted to today. Do we have any like questions or interesting things or anything you guys want to talk about? Because otherwise, I'm tired of talking for 2.5 hours. I'm gonna go and like eat dinner and stuff. I think I'm gonna be done for today if we don't have any actual conversations. Again, this whole video, this whole like stream is gonna be posted up on YouTube after, and I will try my best to mark like in actual like a mark under the description when we talk about each specific thing as specifically as I can. And hopefully that helps, and then I will actually like advertise it and put it out on Twitter and on the official Discords and such. I'll give it its own icon, because I think this whole stream is actually pretty important. We go over tons and tons of topics. I'm 100% sure we have not covered everything. Right? I'm absolutely sure that there's other things players know that keep secrets, or things that I just haven't gone through myself because I didn't think about it today. But the point of this whole stream and the point of this whole recording is that Archeage is pretty big. And, yeah, that's it. There's a lot to this game that people understand. There's a lot to this game that are hidden under the... And hopefully the stream kind of shows that, right? That's pretty much what I'm saying. I missed some of the mage topics, but it's not that important. Like what? What's some mage topics? There's a lot of animation canceling stuff I didn't go over. That's True Skull. You can actually see it a little bit in terms of how like Swiftblade and Battle Rage work too, so I could show it off a little bit, but it's backstab damage affecting AoEs. Oh, that's a big one too, actually. That's a really good... Oh, it's not big, I guess you're right, it's not super big, but you're right, because backstab, it depends on where you are when the calculation occurs, and it's like, if you are behind the target, you'll do that extra backstab bonus. Mages don't tend to go for backstab damage anyways, but it is a thing, right? It's something. It's the same thing for damage over time. Same thing for height damage, right? All these calculations occur they literally all the metrics and things that happen. They occur literally at the time of the damage calculation. So when you see it appear in your combat log, that's when it's looking at the positions of everything. That's when it makes all the calculations it needs based on player location. Any damage that hits the behind hitbox at the same time it hits from the front box. Can you write that in a different way? I don't think I'm getting that. It'll calculate it as a backstab. Any damage that hits the behind hitbox at the same time as it hits the front hitbox. What do you mean by that? I don't think I'm getting that. I think I'm understanding it perfectly well. Where's the skill guy? So if Meteor hits a target, yeah, I'm going to go get Meteor. So this is something that we talked about a long time ago, too. And you're right, I probably should write about this as well. If it hits the front hitbox at the same time it hits their back hitbox. Okay. Actually, that's not how it... I'll show you what I'm talking about. It counts as a backstab, but a crashing wave wouldn't count. That's not actually what we found in testing on that. The way we found it is it only calculates backstab. Oh, it wouldn't work. Hold on, because I don't have any backstab damage for magic, right? Yeah, I have 0%. Damn. So the way we found it working is actually it's just based on where you are at the time of the calculation. So if you use Meteor and then jump behind the target, it'll actually count as a backstab. Because at the time of the hit, you are behind your target. The way it works, that we found, is that when you use these abilities, it looks at your actual angle from the target right when the calculation occurs. So if I use Meteor, then Shadow Step, now I don't have Occultism, and Shadow Step behind the target, when the Meteor hits, it'll count it as a backstab because now, right at that calculation moment, your character is technically behind the target, and the server is the one that decides that. The server says, this is the situation that's happening here, right? Sometimes it actually glitches out, and you see it glitching out all the time with Shadowplay. And they kind of fixed it over the years, where Shadow Smite sometimes did not used to count as a backstab, even though you were literally teleporting behind them and backstabbing. And it usually comes down to the server just lagging, or ping times, or other things. But that's a very, very common scenario where you'd see that happening. Another one, actually, I can test right now is Throw Dagger. So Throw Dagger has a travel time, right? And similar to how mages and crashing waves and stuff would work, is that it calculates the backstab damage based on where you are at the time of it hitting. Now, crashing waves... Yeah, so that wouldn't count, right? But like Meteor, for example, wouldn't count either because, again, it's just looking at where you are versus your enemy. Now, fun fact about these Scarecrows, their backside... God, I have to remember. This is their front, I believe, which is really, really weird. Let me just make sure that that's the case. Oh, I can just use Shadow Step. Let me just do this. Let me just make this easy for me. Can't use it because I'm in combat. That's fine. Get out of combat. Do the weapon swap thing. It didn't work. Oh well. Alright, there we go. So, here, let's try this right now, because maybe they've changed it over the years, too. Or at least we'll try it with one of these abilities, right? So we want Shadow Step, and that'll tell us where it is. Yeah, so this is their back, actually. Their shield is on the back side of these. So if I were to use Throw Dagger on this target from the same elevation, so we're not going to jump or anything here. Throw Dagger does, with a crit, let's look at this first one, because that's the one loaded in first. It's doing, 2,504 damage. Can't really reset this cooldown, which kind of sucks. I wish I had Aromancy so I can speed this up a little bit. But what I want to do is I want to use Throw Dagger from here, from like the maximum distance, right, even with dropback. And then I want to Shadow Step to the target, and you'll see that it actually should do the same damage. This is actually a great test. We're doing research on stream, which is how it should be all the time. So just to show first, without actually getting behind the target, here's how much Throw Dagger does from here. Here it does 2,000 damage, right? So it's actually a pretty hefty bonus. My backstab damage on melee is 33.5%. So it's a pretty hefty, visible amount between these two, right? So now I'm going to use Throw Dagger from the front, but I'm going to Shadow Step before it hits, right? So I'm just going to use Throw Dagger. Oh, but you know what? This causes a global cooldown. So it might not be possible for me to Shadow Step in time. Let me use... I can't use these because they increase my damage too. Whatever, let's just give it a go and see what happens, right? So this is forward backdrop. So I have to put this on my hotkey. Put this in my hotkey. I'm going to do 1, 2, 4. That's what I'm going to... Or F1, F2, 4. Okay, here we go. So, F1, F2, 4. There you go. And so that actually calculates as a backstab damage. So once again, it did 2,500 damage there instead of the 2,000 damage. Because I did this... while, yes, I was activating the ability from the front, it was calculated when I was behind the target. And so because of that... Because of this sort of thing, that's kind of how that backstab damage is calculated. Now, we're more specifically talking about mage AoE, right, Skull? So a mage, like Meteor, would fall down and hit multiple people. And the same, we've noticed the same thing happens. In fact, I never tested this with melee before. This is the first time I've ever tested this with melee. I'm surprised it worked, thankfully. Yeah, go for it. Totally, Skull. I appreciate that. You're making a gif right now about it. But essentially, what ends up happening is the meteor hits, and depending on where you are at that time of calculation versus what direction your target is facing, that's how it calculates the backstab damage versus, you know, not being a backstab damage. But yeah, totally. I want to see the GIF so you can help sort of better explain what you mean there. I think it's totally worth our time because I'm kind of out of topics right now. So if you guys want to bring up other topics or you want to test stuff or you guys want to ask questions about things we talked about, we could totally do that. We've kind of gone over everything that I wanted to talk about. But that's actually a really good topic, honestly, Skull. It's something else that I think a lot of people don't really understand. And again, I could be wrong here too, right? Or it could have changed without us knowing, because literally they love to change gameplay mechanics just right from under our feet all the time. And so, you know, it's tough to test these things. It's easy to make mistakes, and having other people double check stuff is extremely important. So I'm never against, you know, being told that I'm wrong, because that's the best way that you learn something, right? So yeah, I want to see Skull, but we'll get to that once I know you're making the GIF. There's a time associated with it and everything. In the meantime, chat. Is there anything else from chat you guys want to talk about, or questions you guys might have? Did you guys find this whole stream useful? Was anybody here since the beginning? Did you guys learn anything? Was this of any value to you guys? Because I actually don't know. I feel like a lot of this stuff is known already because I've known it for so many years. Dark Sass, you would talk about your life? It's pretty chill. I code things. I do game stuff. That's pretty much it. I code things and I do game things. That's as much as my life that I can think of it anyways. What other Archeage related things do you guys want to talk about? What other Archeage stuff is there? Explains why so... Yeah, I know, yeah. It is, yeah. It's in my nature to kind of understand things from their base value. To be honest, I'm doing all this for a different reason, right? The reason I look into Archeage and its background and its mechanics isn't because I care as much about the game, although I love using it in game because it's fun, right? I love using like my rocket boots to stop fall damage, or I love weapon swapping to take extra, like a little bit of less damage and such. I love these kind of things. I love using my mounts all over the place with like combat pets and such too. It's all fun. But actually, the main reason why I do all this is because I'm curious about how this game is coded. I'm curious about literally reading code line for line by looking at what's happening in game. And by looking at what's happening in game, I can actually almost see how this stuff was written. And all the band-aid fixes that this game has had over the years. That's the big problem. I can see, based on so many different mechanics, that like so many things in this game had bugs in them at one point, and the fix for it is totally not applicable to everything and becomes what's called essentially a band-aid fix. You're not really fixing the base problem, you're just slapping on a fix for that problem. But it doesn't necessarily fix it everywhere else. You see it all over the place. And so my whole purpose of decoding Archeage is the same reason why I decode every other game that I play. Why I look into things like, other MMOs, for example, because I'm very interested in the actual coding. I'm very interested in the way that this stuff is actually done and fixed, how bugs are fixed, how things are changed. It's all very cool to me. I actually was in MMO development at one point in time. I left MMO development because it's a little bit stressful and it wasn't a great way to make money. So I'm kind of want to go back into MMO development now, but it's really hard to change careers because now I'm in software development and I do things with cloud tools and it's all very fun and cool, but it's hard to change careers, right? So it's something I'm looking into at the moment, which is kind of fun, but it is a pain to change careers. Nobody wants me because I'm overqualified, you know? Yeah, Quack, there's the answer to that. So, right, the boxes on Freedich, and actually the crates underneath Growlgate as well, it's an abysmally small drop rate, though. Abysmally small. Like, you can hit 4,000 to 8,000 boxes to 12,000 boxes and still not get anything. So, keep in mind. That's okay, Skull. If you're on the Research Development Discord, we could try to sort this stuff out later if you can't figure it out right now. We could try to totally, really hammer this thing down if you want. But don't worry about it, yeah. I don't want you to feel rushed or stressed about this stuff. It's literally like science in the real world. It takes time, and people have to like report these things, right? You could be right or wrong, but it doesn't matter because somebody else can come out with data that says you're wrong, right? And that's fine. That's a good thing. So I'm not like, we can figure this stuff out. It's not time pressing or anything. It'd be nice to get it on the stream, but whatever. We can always look into these things later. I think the conversation that we had, Skull, was enough to get people thinking, and so that's kind of the important aspect here. That even stuff like this isn't totally found out and understood yet. But even things like, you know, Meteor might have weird mechanics that maybe you and I are both wrong about, right? Maybe there's actually something else happening. There's a modern thing that I don't have an answer for. Maybe you know. Yeah, go for it. I probably don't, actually. If we didn't talk about it on the stream, I guess there's other things we haven't mentioned yet, like the like the backstab thing. So that's fair. The passives that gives reduced casting for X tree. I can only think of one ability like that right now, which is Aromancy Meditate. But I've heard that there are different stats that raw cast. Oh. I think that there's a formula involved there. So every ability has their own cast time. Yeah, like sorcery passives, right? So every ability has their own cast time. And there's a formula that essentially says, like, how can I do this? Can I go into Paint, maybe, and show this off? Maybe that's the best thing. Hold on. Go into Paint here. All right. So there's a formula that says cast time, so total cast time, is equal to base cast time multiplied by cast time reduction. I don't know why I'm writing all caps, but multiplied by passive cast time reduction. Something like that, right? Or maybe these two are actually added together, right? So there's some kind of a formula happening in the background there. It could be very possible that actually it's like this. Base cast time minus passive cast time reduction times cast time reduction. It could be like this, and maybe that's what we're seeing with the sorcery passives, is that the sorcery passives are calculated here as opposed to here, with, you know, added here versus there, or multiplied there or here. This is actually one of the biggest arguments right now in the game, because this argument is all over the place when it comes to damage calculation. Damage calculation is the dumbest freaking thing in the universe. There are so many things that affect every single hit that happens in the combat log. And by the way, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the combat log does not show you guys everything. So when you get absorbed damages here, okay, like this, like absorbed whatever, this does not include percent received damage reduction. So if I have 22% melee damage reduction, and somebody hits with me with melee, this damage reduction does not appear in the combat log. It's calculated before it gets to the combat log. So you won't ever see this in there. The only things that are absorbed in the combat log is toughness and actual, you know, mitigation from physical and magic defense. That's it. Those are the only things that appear in the actual combat log itself. So if you use Sunder Earth, oh god, I don't have Sunder Earth now, but if you use Sunder Earth and you stand in it and somebody hits you, you won't just suddenly see a 30% increase in your absorbed value, because that gets added to this, to melee damage reduction, to range damage reduction, to siege damage reduction, and such. So you won't actually see that stuff applied in the combat log. Want a really good example of it? You will never see an absorbed value for siege damage. If you get hit by siege damage, you will never see absorbed, because toughness doesn't matter, and your mitigation doesn't matter. And siege damage reduction percentage isn't calculated before it gets to that point. It's calculated before it gets to your combat log. So there you go. There's your example of how this stuff doesn't appear there. The damage calculation is a whole freaking slew of this. But it's like, it's this all over the place. So total damage is equal to, like, melee attack time, or no, not even that, actually. Let's take, like, I don't know, Shadow Step, or not Shadow Step, let me say. Like Twin Shadow Slash, right? Twin Shadow Slash for me says 848 plus 213% melee attack. Okay, you take that, and the actual damage you do is this, minus a whole bunch of stuff, like, you know, percent, what's this, actually multiplied by percent damage reduction, and then you take that stuff and you minus your fixed damage reduction, and you take that stuff and you multiply it by, like, you know, something else. Oh no, you'd actually multiply all this by, like, weapon attack speed, right? So weapon attack speed 1.2 would do a little bit more damage, but actually that's not applied there. That's actually applied around here. I'm not even kidding you. This is the dumbest thing. This is some of the craziest arguments people are having right now, because weapon attack speed doesn't fit into this formula properly, because the weapon attack speed is based on the weapons itself, like the weapon itself and what it provides. So, like, some of your melee attack isn't even calculated here properly. Like, it says 213% melee attack, but because, like, some of, like, that's so hard to explain. It's like, it's really, like, melee attack from other items and 213% melee attack from weapon. And then this is multiplied by weapon attack speed, right? Like, it's crazy how much stuff happens here. This is something along the lines of the damage formula. So I'm not surprised at all if cast time reduction is also this sort of crazy thing, right? Where it's a whole bunch of things together, where the plus or multiplication could be here or there. I don't know this stuff, and it's really hard to figure it out. Like, this thing is just insane. Okay, thankfully I have access to a Korean character, and you know what? The first thing I did in the Korean server was I made a combat log, of course, and I hit something. And guess what I found out? On Korea right now in 7.0, they don't have any absorbed values in their combat log. So their combat log is completely void of all absorbed values. You do not see absorbed there. You only see how much damage you do. They have hidden all absorbed information, period. So yeah, good luck testing stuff in that patch, because if that does come to our version and we don't have absorbed values anymore, we are really fucked. We have no way to test so many different things without, like doing crazy stuff and taking off all of our armor and weapons and everything. Like, it's going to make it much harder to understand the game. So thankfully we've already done so. Like, thankfully we've already figured out most of the game, and that's why we have this information now that's relatively available, but you have to kind of search for it, right? Yeah, it's a weird game, right? It's crazy, man. This whole thing is just, like, this isn't even slightly... This is, like, not even, like, 1% of how much this calculation stuff is, because we didn't even go into height damage bonus, right? Let's go into height damage bonus too, like, times, or plus, height damage bonus, times amount, and there's also, like, backstab damage, right? Backstab. And, you know, this could actually be here. Maybe this is calculated at the end. Maybe this is calculated, like, inside of this part. Like, it's insane. Like, all this stuff is so unknown to players. Like, it could be calculated in here, like, as a part of this, right in there, right? It could be calculated at the end, after everything else is calculated, after, like, the whole thing is done. All of this stuff is just insane. And that's why this game is so complicated, right? It's why it's, like, it's impossible to know anything about Archeage, because everything is just hidden to the players. But it's kind of cool. It's cool, but it's also very hard to understand and decode and figure it out, so. Fun stuff, right? What a game we play. What a game. Any other conversations or questions or thoughts or things you guys want to talk about while we're still live and here? I think we covered so many good topics, honestly. Hopefully this is a useful video on YouTube for a lot of folks, especially with timestamps, right? Like, timestamps are going to be extremely important to making this video useful. And after it's out, which honestly probably will be out, like, before tonight's done. So I'll try to advertise it all over the place. I'm, like, on Twitter and on the official Discord, because I've got content creator status there, so I can post in that channel. And then, you know, share that out to people. Share this information to people, especially, like, if you want to scare a new player, you give this video to them. And you'd be like, hey, man, you want to learn how crazy Archeage is? Watch this thing. and they're just going to go nuts and they're going to pee themselves, right? Because they're totally new to the game. They're like, how do I switch my skill set? And then you give them this crap? Oh, man. It's a lot, right? There's a lot of stuff in this game that are just, like, literally discovered over years. Alright. If we're done, I think I'm done. I think I'm finished. Yeah? Are we finished? Cool? Was this a good stream? Did you guys enjoy this at all, actually? Like, I don't know. Yes or no? I have no idea. Was this useful? Do you think it'll be useful to people? I hope so, but, you know. There's a little bit of validation I need to know, for sure. But alright. You guys let me know in the comments then on YouTube, too. I'm done. I'm gonna go eat dinner. Guys, thanks everybody for hanging out and chilling and bringing up really, really good topics and stuff. And helping with sorting out all these really good things we've mentioned today. It's Sunday, right? So next stream is probably going to be on Friday on regular sort of times. Again, there's no actual schedule for the stream. So if you like the content, please go ahead and follow the channel on Twitch. I do put things up on YouTube afterwards. All of my streams are up there, but YouTube isn't really my focus. Twitch is. So if you're watching this on YouTube, go run over to Twitch and follow me there if you want to know when I go live, because then we can actually have meaningful conversations in person where I can go and answer questions and we can talk about theory crafting and such, and it's probably a lot better that way, right? It's a lot better than having to type in like Discord and such. You have to use OBS. It isn't set up properly, but you got it on streamable. And it's processing right now. Processing video. Okay. We could wait a couple minutes. Do you think? How long is the video? Do you think it'll be ready soon? Because I can put it up here in the browser. Try to figure out a way to make that work. You can see the backstab affects it regardless of position. For like Meteor specifically? Or which skill were you testing, Skull? Let's see. Yeah, it's still going to take a little while. It's okay. We'll wait a little bit for them. See if we can get that just in. For any skill that hits both the frontal and behind hitbox at the same time. Oh, like Whirlwind Slash. Wait, Whirlwind Slash is AoE, but it doesn't work that way, right? I can just try it right now. Because Whirlwind Slash would hit, reach very, very far past the target. Is that a good example, maybe, Skull? We use Whirlwind Slash for it? Or no? Does it have to be like a targeted AoE? Oh, it's up! Hey, we made it work. Alright, so you hit him from the front. And then you should hit him also from the back, right? Yeah. And oh, let me just put this on here. Hold on. You guys can see this too. So this is Skull's video that they were taking. You're not sure about how Whirlwind is coded? Okay. So it is not all. So it's not necessarily every skill, but it could just be Meteor, right? It could specifically be Meteor that works this way. So let me take a look here. So, all right, we use Meteor, and we do. Oh, this sucks because guess what? You're gonna have height advantage when you go behind it. But anyways, 82,000. You go behind it, hopefully on the same level. There we go. Nice. And from behind, it should do the same damage, right? Waiting for cooldown. There we go. Actually, I wish you didn't use Magic Circle. But that's okay, it's fine. Alright, and it should do... Wait, it does less damage. It does 78,000 now. So is there something they were missing? Serpent's Glare. Oh, okay, we're going to take off backstab damage now. Okay. But it should do less damage all the time, right? So now both values should be the same between the first hit and the second hit. So we do the first one, it is 74,000, so it's much lower. Not just because of the backstab damage or whatever, but also because of... you took off some stats, right? And so now it should be 74, 75 still. But let's see what happens. We just scroll past. Actually, I don't even see where the cooldown is. Oh, there we go. Alright. Do it again. And we get... Yeah, same thing. So it's 74 again. But actually... But you actually proved that you do more damage from the back. Right? So this first hit did 82, which is massive. And it's a massive difference than this back hit, which is 70 something. So actually, if anything, this proves that there is backstab damage from a certain AoE, from a certain direction, right, Skull? Or is that not the case? I don't know. Am I missing something, maybe? Yeah, because look at that. That's 78. That's a 4,000 difference, right? Plus the absorb value, which is even more. Oh, sorry, the stream crashed. No! Sorry, just from this video alone, it looks like, yeah, backstab damage does matter for Meteor, right? Because you do more damage here from the front. Where is it? Here from the front. Right here you did 82, 83 K versus the back where it did 78. But the point is that, in other words, it's not just like you're always doing backstab damage regardless of which direction you are, right? It's just, because that's what I thought you were meant earlier. But yeah, it's like 9% less, right? Okay, I got you. But that's not, so that doesn't really work for Meteor, because you said for any skill that hits both frontal and behind hitbox at the same time, right? At the same server tick. So I don't think that's the way that works in this video, right? Or maybe I'm wrong? Oh, that's not how it works. Oh wait, how is that not how it works? Wait, what do you mean? I think we're on the same page, actually. I think we're both talking about the same thing, right? Just we're wording it differently, I think. We're just using different terminology, possibly. The first two meteors do more damage with the gear equipped from both sides. Right, yeah. But you do a little less damage because you took off gear, right? So you get significantly less. When you take off gear... Oops, not the paint. I'm going to go to the browser. No, not even the browser. I'm going to take away browser. When you take off your gear, you lose a lot of skill damage from your buff, right? From your armor buff. So if I took off 2 pieces, for example, my legs and my belt, now instead of 12%, I have 8.5. So even in cloth, because you've got cloth here, you're still losing that amount. And so you will do significantly less damage regardless, right? In those cases. Does that make sense? You go from 10.5 to 9, and you also lose a little bit of magic as well, right? Because you lost a little bit of stats. So all those things do play a pretty big role, right? So between the 78k backstabbing with gear on to the 75k, that's 3,000. I'm not going to think about absorb values right now. So if we just do that difference, 75,000 divided by 78,000, that's a 4% difference. A little bit under 4%, something like that, right? So we know 1.5% comes from the grade buff, right? The other 2.3% might come from... what would it come from? Let me think. I mean, intelligence, right? There's an intelligence difference, so there's a little bit of scaling on magic attack. If I take off 2 pieces of armor, that would be a difference of about 100 melee attack. Is that correct? No, it's like 40 melee attack, something like that. It's like 30 melee attack. So 30 melee attack scales a bit higher with big abilities like Precision Strike. It would probably do about the same with Meteor. But I would say that it's probably something about, like, that's more of the reason why you saw a difference there. It's not necessarily backstab affecting it from the front or the back or anything, or always having some portion of the backstab affecting it. I think there's just something else in this crazy, ridiculous, damage formula that's going on when you take off your equipment that's causing those numbers. I mean, it's even down to this. When you take off equipment, you actually get less... where is it? When you take off equipment, you actually get... what are my backstab ones? These ones? So you probably also have less actual melee skill damage, or magic skill damage as well, just from other reasons somewhere. Wait, what? Oh, one is the underwear. Oh, underwear is massive, right? If you take off your underwear, you're going to do much less damage, because you actually get a ton of skill damage from that, too. Let's see. Let's see. So yeah, the underwear gives... Oh, but yours doesn't... Wait, yeah, I think so. You don't have skill damage? What do you have? You have crit rate. You have defense penetration. Defense penetration is kind of... is not nothing. Especially because these scarecrows actually do have defenses. That's why they have absorb values at all. You do have backstab damage. Okay, I see. You have a little bit of intelligence. I got you. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a scaling difference, right? Because you are removing a little bit of defense penetration, too. Let's see, if I do one hit, and that will give me 1662 with a blade hit. Okay, and if I do, let me take off 300 defense penetration, so the same thing, right? Or around the same amount, a little bit less technically. So we get out of combat, and I'm going to take away, it's also going to take away some skill damage, though. I don't want that. How can I take away just 300 defense penetration? That's a lot of defense penetration. Yeah, this is going to be a hard thing to calculate right now. But essentially, there is something else playing a role there. Like 99% sure. I don't think that it's backstab damage counting like a little bit because you're hitting from the front. Because otherwise, you would have seen the exact same value from both. It's not going to calculate half backstab damage suddenly just because it's an AoE, right? There's something else affecting it. It could just be height, honestly, a height difference. Even to a very small degree, has very, very different boosts. So what are those? What's that in that order? Let's take this off, I guess, but yeah, that's a very massive difference. Since I took off defense penetration, it's going to do less damage overall. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very, very tough thing to measure this exactly. But we could try to figure this out later. I don't want to do it right now because I want to go eat dinner. So I'm gonna go eat dinner and then do like reset things for ArcFast, right? And get that out of the way as much as I can, as early as I can. But yeah, so hopefully, at least since this was all on video and we went through your video as well, again, it gives people some reason to continue looking into this stuff, and we could talk about this more on the R&D Discord too, so we could try to nail down exactly what's happening here. If I were you, I would actually test in Cairnord, or I'm sorry, not Cairnord, in Memoria, like I am here, because the actual, like, the height, even though, like, look at this, it has a height damage boost over me right now, because I'm standing a little bit lower, right? Even these little minuscule amounts can give you a pretty big boost. You remember, this is already 6 to 8% of a boost. So even if you're just standing on a slightly higher hill like this, I'll already start doing more damage. So that's 655, 663, 657, 654, 652. Now if I just walk over here, it's actually about the same. Huh? Okay, it's not that much of a height difference then between there and there. My point is, you can take advantage of a very small hill and not even notice, right? So you want to try to do the calculations on very, very level ground. And it's not always easy to do that, and a lot of times you won't even notice that it's happening. So like just standing up here and shooting down, now I get 702, right? And it's a little bit higher. If I keep going down like this, 661, I think this is where I'm back at the regular amount. No, even that's a little bit higher. So it's very easy to accidentally have height cause issues in calculations. Alright, I'm going to do a hard stop here. We can talk more about this stuff on R&D. I'm going to go eat. I think everybody can agree that that's fine too. It's important to eat and do other things as well. So, I'm out. I appreciate everybody hanging out. I hope the stream was actually useful to you guys, and we were able to actually teach a bunch of people stuff. YouTube folks, go subscribe to my Twitch channel if you like the content, you want to talk more and have questions about theory crafting or mechanics or other things. And yeah, that's it. I'll be back on Friday for the regular kind of weekend streams. If I find any time to stream during the weekdays, then I will. But it tends to happen a little bit less. I mostly just do this as a hobby in off hours, so I'll see you guys on Friday. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Talk to you all then. Good day, everybody.